Facts.
You said you want to ask me, why are you a Nazi?
Inclusion has been our greatest strength.
All right, nobody sent many money, but we'll watch this anyway.
Diversity has been our greatest strength.
White people do feel like we are being boxed out.
A 26-year-old white kid doesn't feel like he has access because he's been canceled, and the problem is black people.
I didn't say the problem's black people.
Well, you just did, Nick. You just
I
said
said the problem is crime, and we know who's doing the crime in Chicago.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
About the Holocaust thing?
Oh.
The Holocaust? Yeah. No.
About that.
We get to say whatever we want on the internet.
Let's see the actual show.
Have all
First question that I had.
We can get stealing from us.
life without
Find common ground.
The kind of first question that I had whenever I caught wind that you wanted to do an interview like this is, why now? What made you want to sit down for this kind of interview?
Well, I think it's an interesting conversation to have all of us here. And, I think it's a moment in our country when there's a lot of realignment. I think that people recognize, especially in the past couple of years, I'm like a non-conventional critic, maybe, of what's happening. And so I think it'll be an interesting, productive conversation. I think it'll be different.
But I mean, specifically, because we kind of share a publicist, I heard that you wanted to kind of... Okay, we have a publicist that you hit up, and you said that you wanted to talk to someone who would give you kind of a fair shot to clear up some things and maybe some misconceptions about you and the things you believe.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, I think that, I'm somebody who, I think like you, actually, maybe we have this in common, is kind of pigeonholed in a certain way for things that we've done in the past or things that we've said.
I think they just wanted a quiet area, so they probably just got
I'm
a hotel
racist,
room.
right?
I got pigeonholed there. Mine is true. Yeah.
Yeah, well, mine's a little true. Maybe a little, no. But yeah, so I think it'd be good to clear up some of the misrepresentations and put out something accurate.
So what do you think is the most misrepresented thing about you?
Well, I think really the whole image everybody has about me. When you mentioned me, I think on a recent show, you said you want to ask me, why are you a Nazi?
Yeah.
And that's how everybody knows me. Everybody thinks of me as a white supremacist Nazi, and I don't think that's really true at all. I think that we definitely have different values. I mean, you're more from the left, I'm more from the right, but I don't think I'm a hater. I'm not a hateful person.
It is Heil Hitler Friday. Heil Hitler, all my niggas Nazis.
Hitler was very fucking cool.
Yes, I do.
I don't like all the cuts.
One of them.
And I'm tired of pretending he's not.
So what's the thing about, I guess, traditional Nazism that you think you disagree with the most?
Well, it's a non-Christian ideology. So, I mean, look, I believe that race is real, as the Nazis did, but I don't think it utterly defines a person. As a Christian, I think we're all created beings. I do believe there's such a thing as a universal human.
I'll say Hunter Biden's pose here is very good. He has a very what I don't like about it, I'll say this, is that it's like a clown show. It's like, why is he having a discussion with some crackhead? You know what I mean? It's like, why is he relegated to talking to a crackhead? He's like a famous person. That it's just not. It's just monetizing it's like entertainment. That's what it is. It's like entertainment slop in the sense where it's they're not going to change anything. You know what I mean? It's not going to. He's a crackhead whisperer. Yeah, that's why I like him. But no, that's where it's it's not serious in the sense where, and maybe that's fine, but it's kind of insulting to have to be you're having a conversation and there's a crackhead,
community. And so I think it's a
Does that make
cruel
sense?
ideology. I've said this on my
It's
show,
not
by the way.
It's not a grift move. It's fine. To me, it's insulting to him. You know what I mean? It's insulting. You're doing something, or you're trying to, but now you're talking with a celebrity crackhead.
But I mean, that would
Maybe he
be the
wants to do this.
fundamental.
I don't know.
Did you always feel that way?
Always, yeah, absolutely.
So even whenever you were younger and stuff?
I did, but you got to recognize times have changed. 10 years ago, we had a totally different.
It's like a carnival in the sense where it's like a sideshow. It's interesting, it's fun, but it doesn't really do anything. It's like everyone's relegated. Anybody who wants to do anything real, it's relegated to here's a entertainment product you can be in as a shock value. Here's an entertainment product you can be in and be involved in. You're not really accessing any levers of power. You're not being given any real influence in any real way. You're just allowed to talk to this washed out crackhead. And I like Hunter Biden. I think Hunter Biden comes off very nice. He comes off very well. Even like the way he's presenting himself here, his body language is it's just it's like yeah, you're allowed to participate in the carnival. You're allowed to participate in the money making aspect, the carnival, the bread and circuses stuff. But you're not really. It's not like this is going to impact where data centers are built, who does what. It's more that like yeah, you're like part of a show. You're like instrumentalized. Your sincerity or your like beliefs are instrumentalized in a sense where it's like for me like this would be fun to do, right? This would be a very fun thing to do because like I'm not trying to do something, so it's like a fun conversation. You can have like, well, what about this, what about that, but I'm not like a serious person in the sense where I'm not trying to do something. I'm not trying to like whereas Nick is trying to ostensibly do something or like make a change or the theater of grotesque, um so it's fun. But it's kind of like, yeah, you're not in the club, so here you can talk to like the washout of the club. Does that make sense? You can talk to the washout of the club.
Political world, the
Yeah,
regulation
theater of grotesque. It like dehumanizes everybody. It dehumanizes like sincere. It's like, oh, you would want to make a change. Well, here you can do this. You're annoying and you're a thorn in the side enough that here you can participate in this. This like weird, this like secondary thing. It's not really real in the sense, It's still a fun thing, but I think it's like insulting to Nick in a sense.
policing of speech, what you would call wokeness, I think was at an all-time high when I got started as a very young man.
What would you would call wokeness?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and I think,
Yeah.
I mean, would you not say there were some excesses maybe in those days?
Yeah, in those days I wasn't doing too well, so I wasn't paying much attention. Anyway, I would love to hear, and I'm not asking you to like retract everything that you've ever
Like
said, and
Hollywood.
all, or
Well, that's the
anything,
thing. I
but
don't have any.
said
I think
that I would love to
go
talk
for
to
it.
you because number one,
Go for it. It's fun.
I told you
But
this.
yeah,
That
that's a,
I think
it's
you're really
entertainment
smart,
products.
and I think that with that comes in a real.
And to me, it's like there's no real. That's what's so frustrating too. Is there's no real path forward. It's not like there's a better option, right? It's not like here's a better option, and you can do this, and this is a better option. The better options are kind of locked away. So you have like these. You have like a facsimile of an option, but the option doesn't do anything, right? It's like this conversation or not, it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't actually help anything. Um, if that's the frustrating part about it. It's a cool thing. I'm happy that he had the opportunity to. I think it's fun and it's entertaining. But it's the frustrating part is that it's like, yeah, but this doesn't do anything. You know what I mean? And it's not his failing. It's the failing of the. It's not even a failing. It's like a feature of the way the things are set up. And I don't think it's on purpose. I don't think it's like some master plan. I think it's kind of the ecosystem as it exists. It's like the real levers of power are not available to people who are not given them. And the people who are given them are never going to be people who want to do something because, it kind of exists to perpetuate the bureaucracy and the system kind of exists to perpetuate itself and preserve itself. And so barring some sort of external shock, it doesn't like I even think like the financial system is a good example of that, where it's like COVID shutting down all the economy, that should have crashed the economy. It should have like ruined the economy and destroyed businesses and that sort of stuff. It did do that, but only for little people. It only did that for like people running mom and pop shops, people trying to do stuff. You try to start a business now, it's kind of hard. It's like all the rules, regulations, they don't actually prevent the big companies from doing stuff, the people with a lot of access to capital from doing stuff, but they do prevent people who are like little people from doing stuff. Um, and it's kind of frustrating in the sense of like talented people or people who are hardworking are kind of prevented from a lot of things. No, not everything. Like we saw that Bembo Quest game. Bembo Quest is a good example of somebody who, it's just pure talent, pure skill, pure will, and pure, soul. So it's not always the case, but in the case of the governing, in the case of setting rules, the rules only apply to, like, the rules that can be modified only apply to little people. They don't apply to people who are at the top or the upper echelon, the top half of society, if that makes sense.
Responsibility. And you have an audience. And I have a friend whose son is my daughter's age, maybe 28, your age. And he's really smart. And he is a big fan of yours. And so by virtue of the relationship, I got to learn what it is why he is a fan of yours. And none of it has to do with, I would hope you agree, like really egregious things that you've said in the past about the Holocaust or about,
Did the Jews ever talk about the 100 million whites that died in World War II? Or do they just bitch and moan about the so-called 6 million Jews that died?
And so it's just nice to poke holes in it and say it's not 6 million.
Like, I think what's coming is a reckoning of sorts that is being delayed, not being delayed, but it hasn't happened yet. But what I think is coming is like the reckoning that happened during COVID, where people kind of realize, everyone kind of knows this is a scam, this is bad. Not everyone, but everyone who's paying attention is it's a scam. It's bad. Or even January 6th, where it's like the election is stolen. The election is obviously like rigged. It's obviously not fair. It's obviously wrong. And then you say, well, now what? Right? Because you've identified something is corrupt, something is weird, something is not going the way it's supposed to go. And that's like step one, right? Step one is recognizing there's a problem. Step two is there has to be some sort of action, some sort of response, or some sort of like making right of the situation, where like the people who are in charge, who are making the election, the fraudulent election, participate, the people who are going into their job in Washington D.C., who are continuing to serve or whatever, there needs to be like some sort of thing where like, no, we're not going in, we're not going to go, we're resigning, I'm resigning, I am stepping down because this is wrong, this is not happening. In order for a system to correct itself, there needs to be people who have some sort of authority or some sort of access to a system willingly saying, hey, this is bad, so I'm refusing to participate anymore. That didn't happen, right? And then then you're like, okay, well, obviously the system is not going to fix itself. The system is designed, that sort of thing. And I think there's like a reckoning where that hasn't happened yet, that's going to happen, where people have to, sit with like, oh, this person's popular, everyone kind of agrees, or this person, like, everyone thinks this makes sense, but nothing changes. And they have to deal with that level of like, okay, well, yeah, this sucks, and this is reality. And I think that's going to happen in my lifetime. It's going to happen in like the next decade or two, where people realize that, and then malaise or some sort of depression or some sort of like not even nihilism, but more like kind of like acceptance. And we're not there yet, and that's kind of frustrating. Where it's like, does that make sense? I don't want things to become violent. When I was in Cleveland, it was already that way, though. Yeah. For this reason, I'm now a drone enthusiast. Yeah. So, news article a few years ago put it perfectly. Some factory somewhere got off scot clean for poisoning people, and 10-minute drive away, cops shut down a little girl's lemonade stand. Yeah, that sort of stuff. I don't know. I think that needs to happen in terms of the public. It's like a trap. There's something called nerd sniping. It's like a concept of like you give like the nerd like a problem, and then they're off for like an hour or a day or a year, and their brain is like stuck trying to fix the problem, right? They're trying to like, I think it's called nerd sniping. They're trying to fix like the error, but really they're just wasting their time. You're kind of wasting your time. I think kind of societies at this stage of like nerd sniping, or at the stage of like searching for like how to fix it. Or a better example would be giving a like an LLM some task that's impossible and just going down. It's like I can't stop until I find the answer. I can't stop until I find the answer. I can't stop until I find the answer. There is no answer. So it's just gonna keep going forever. It's gonna hang. And I think that's where it feels like public discussion is, where it's like anybody who can do stuff and is capable of doing stuff is stuck in this zone of like looking for the solution. That's even what Hitler talked about, the final solution. No, it's not the same thing, but it has the same word. Where it's like a solution and you're looking for a solution, looking for a solution. And I think there's like a level of like millennials, Gen Z now, because Gen Z is getting older too, but millennials and Gen Z that is talking. And I don't know, I think there's like a level you need to realize, and people need to realize that like, no, there is no solution. And not that doesn't mean that a violent solution is a solution. There isn't a violent solution either. There is no like this is the cage. This is the panopticon. This is the that sort of thing that needs to happen, and it's like very frustrating because we're not there in terms of working on things, or like I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense. I think I'm kind of being disjointed here.
6 million? I don't think so.
And I don't even know. I think I've heard you since.
Yeah, no, I guess what I'm saying is like, I think to put it succinctly, I think Arvel's thing is the closest thing to what I'm saying. I don't even think that's a solution. But the reason it's not a solution is that people can't be dissuaded from the idea of like, it's like the sunk cost fallacy of, well, we have all this stuff, we have all these systems, and we have all this luxury, and we have all this stuff working to some degree. Can't we just fix it? And I think the answer is like, no, we can't. The problem is you can't then go be like, oh, now okay, let's drop out because this is not going to work. The problem is if you do that, then you're just isolated, and now you're being outcompeted by the half working system that kind of feeds and houses and cleans and employs people, and kind of creates more and more biomass of like bad people and people who are like a drain on society. And it's like, I guess a good way to be would be like a machine. It's kind of it's putting off this like poisonous gas, right? And it's doing something kind of half hard. It's digging this hole, and you need to dig holes to be successful. And if you're aware that it's putting off this poisonous gas that's building up, obviously you're not going to want to use the machine, which would be like civilization, because the civilization is, it's putting off this poisonous gas, it's building, making people sicker and sicker. Eventually, it's going to poison everybody. And if you go off to the side and you're like, well, we need to figure out a different system because this isn't working, you're technically right, but because it's not obvious enough, and it's not clear enough, and it's not horrible enough, and the system does kind of work, everybody's like actively like, well, no, this is not the right, you're doing the wrong, you're like being a misanthrope, you're being like a so then now you're dealing with the people who should be on your side, who should be on your in your corner, and should be devoting their time and energy and their ability to create things in a positive way. You're just looking like a misanthrope, and I don't think it's really fixable. But I think I don't know, I think there needs to be some sort of like self-actualization that happens from people on like a societal level who are capable of building things and making things. Like the systems we were talking about, like even with like the clipping, like that level of abstract thought of like, oh yeah, you can use the chat as a signal, and then you can pop that into um, transcription service, the video, and then you can use a video model to then analyze the video and then create a caption and then share that. Like all that level of abstract thought, like people who can do that, they should be getting opportunities by people who to make things and build systems, but they're not really. It's kind of just like, how can we strip mine the system as it is and like sell it for parts and get as much resources as possible from this failing system, than to how can we prevent the system from failing or move before there's a calamity, before there's a disaster of like insurmountable proportions, let's just try to like load up the docks. Let's load up our pockets and that sort of stuff. That's why I said do a community project. I would help work on that. Yeah, well, that's the thing is like, what is a community project? Like, that's like the project I want to work on. Like, that's like a fun thing. But the thing is, we don't have like, there's nobody like, yeah, here's $80,000 to work on buying hardware. Here's money to live. Here's like a place to live. Here's enough money to support a family and do that sort of stuff. There doesn't really seem to be that opportunity. And maybe there is. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not. Maybe I'm not suited for it. Maybe people don't want to give it to me. But I think that's that's where it's like, yeah. There's not. I don't know. Maybe there, and that's the thing. Maybe it's just. Maybe this is just like the time. It's unfortunate where it's like it's just too early in terms of stuff. And I think that probably is the real answer. Is that it's just like, yeah, you see the problem, but it's just too early to fix it. Like even you look at like Jared Taylor or somebody like that, or Oswald Mosley or whatever, and like they could see like the Rivers of Blood speech or whatever. You can see the problem, but it's just you need like masses of people, and you can't really get them. I just I see like this like future that is you kind of need people uncomfortable, but the people you need to be uncomfortable are the people now. Whereas I think people are going to get uncomfortable in the future, and then the quality of people will be less. Now you might have a bifurcation, which would be good, a bifurcation of quality people before it gets too bad. I don't know though. I think it's like a self balancing thing. Once again, it's I haven't modeled it out in my head or written it out enough to really be clear in how I'm speaking about it.
Kind of rescind a lot.
But yeah, it's like I don't know. I think yeah, we have Beards and Beardsley community. I think Oswald Mosley was a Disney character. He had a good look, dude. I liked his look. Was Oswald Mosley the Rivers of Blood person? Am I thinking of somebody else? Oswald Mosley, Peaky Blinders, Rivers of Blood. That was him, right? Yeah, yeah. Oh, Enoch Powell. Sorry, yeah, Enoch Powell. Yeah, even me, I'm like forgetting. It's Enoch Powell, not Oswald Mosley. I'm glad I caught that, or else I would feel really stupid. But yeah, like that stuff. I think I don't know. I'm not sure. I think there's just things need to be more miserable. But the thing is, as things get miserable too, like there's a system of like there's more passion, and then the passion can be extracted. It's like the same reason there's pedophiles in like churches and every denomination, not just Catholics, right? So this isn't a Catholic thing. This is like just anything that has vulnerable people will necessarily attract predators because those are where the vulnerable people are, right? So the more vulnerable people there are, the more likely there is to be somebody who wants to interact with the vulnerable people. And the problem is, I think you get like vulnerable people not just in the child in a church thing, but in terms of financially, in terms of socially, and it gives rise to bad situations.
A lot of
Yeah,
that.
Mike
You
Enoch
can
said
see
it.
that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust.
Possibly more. Possibly, we're discovering all the time. So it could maybe even be more than that.
But what he agrees with is kind of the anger about the situation that particularly your generation finds yourself in. I know that to be real. And I think that there, maybe my reasons for recognizing that anger as being legitimate and my targets are different than yours. I just wanted to hear from you. When you say you were canceled by the right in 2016.
Yes.
I almost felt like in preparing to meet you now is that your reaction to that was to just dig deeper and deeper into kind of the outsider kind of radical say anything for the purpose of
It's weird to me
generating-
how well Hunter Biden comes off compared to Tucker, though. Like the way he dresses and stuff. It's all very like affluent, but it's like a very working class affluent. Like it comes off as like a real man's man in terms of like the outfit. It's like country vibe, like country clothing in terms of like very it's casual, right? It's like jeans, It's a nice shirt, but it comes off as like worn. It comes off as like normal. Um, you know what I mean? Yeah, very rural, but it's like affluent rural, but it's properly rural in a way where you don't really see like even like Andrew Callaghan. Like that's just like normal or whatever. But it's a very it's a very funny like he wears it so much better than like Tucker does. It's very funny.
The attention to build an audience. Is that true? And it's not an accusation. I really mean it. I want this to be a conversation as much as possible.
I mean, there's certainly some truth to that, but I think that might be overstating it a little bit because
Okay.
I really got canceled by the right and the left.
Yeah.
And back in those days in 2017, you had these far left journalists at Huffington Post, Right Wing Watch, ADL, SPLC, and I really believe they were on a mission to find extremist rhetoric.
Yeah, no, he
the
comes
white
off as somebody that's
nationalist.
like he doesn't make you angry. He comes off as like unironically as somebody who grew up rural. There's a lot of rural people who are very well off, and they don't come off like whereas Tucker Carlson comes off as like a rich person pretending LARPing. You know what I mean? Whereas Hunter comes off as he comes off as an affluent person who is very comfortable and he's not pretending he's not, but he's also not like he's not like skin suiting in a weird way, if that makes sense. He comes off as very like genuine.
This neo-Nazi boogeyman, all that kind of stuff. And they would look at someone like myself, 18, and if I was being serious or joking, things taken out of context, they would clip it, post it, and they wanted me to be the villain. And I think they wanted a lot of people to be the villain. I think the left, in a way, kind of created this climate where I think they pushed a lot of people farther to the right.
No, by the way,
canceling them.
that very well may be true, but you gave him a lot of ammunition.
That's true.
I mean, I hope that some of those things that you said in the past are not things that you believed in and that are you meant just to engender like a really radical kind of response. I mean, is that true or not?
Well, again, I think that back in those days, you could not say anything. In 2017, 2018, cancel culture was so in overdrive. Any joke, any edgelording, anything like that, they would, first of all, there's no sense of humor.
I'm so old. I don't even. What's
Okay, well, to break it
edgelording?
down for you, so the dawn of wokeness as it's known today, I think was in like the post-Trump era. After Trump won the election in 2016, there was a big movement to deplatform and kind of push away those who, I guess the left feel like had galvanized them into the presidency. So there was this big idea that if you push people off mainstream social media platforms, they would go away. Now we know through Trump's reelection, that's not even true. But at the time, that was the mantra. Problematic viewpoints needed to be silenced, tucked away somewhere, and they would just sort of die in isolation. So I think that was the climate where
Hunter's very detached from the reality of things. Yeah, but in a way that's like pleasant. It's probably just because he's Irish.
2017.
Honestly.
That time period was like crucial for getting people off mainstream platforms. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I would say that you got to get into the psychology of those days. It felt like anybody that wasn't on board with the most progressive agenda had no options. There was just no alternative. It was going to be progressive, liberal, feminist, BLM, all that kind of stuff. And if you were to the right of John McCain, you're no platformed. Censored, banned from all the platforms, you're fired from your job, you're ostracized socially. And I think what happened really in 2021 when Trump got banned from the platforms is it felt like 70 million people got canceled. 70 million people that voted for Trump, or 60, 70 million people, we were all felt like, oh, so if Trump is out of politics and we're all banned from the platforms, then how is there any redress for our grievances? Do we just have to shut up and get with the program and we're all going to be progressive? And I think that drove people to a far more radical place where people said, well, what really is a solution? We can't talk. We can't express ourselves. We can't participate in the process or run for office. And I was one of the people saying that's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to drive people to extremism. If you don't talk, if people don't feel like they have a seat at the table and enfranchisement, I think then they start exploring options outside the system, outside of the political process, the democratic process. So I think it's self-inflicted in many ways.
So you feel like after the mass deplatforming in 2021, whenever people on the right got pushed to platforms like Parler, Gab, Rumble, etc., the lack of discourse and like the political singularity of those platforms created more extremism?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because look, you take Trump off of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and I predicted this in 21. I said, watch, you're going to see alternative social media rise because some venture capitalist is going to see there's a huge market of 70 million people that are going to follow Trump because Trump is no platformed. And that's exactly what happened.
Get on Gab,
Rumble blew
dude.
up, Elon bought Twitter, And what happened when you had total free speech on these platforms? Well, Twitter now resembles 4chan. And now, there's no gatekeepers. And I think it did push people in a radical direction. And honestly, people are even blowing past me. Now there's like mainstream normie types that are even blowing past me in terms of how radical they are. People start saying things like, there's no political solution, there's going to be a civil war, we need a revolution. And I think that's because the message from the left was, you're crushed. You have no options, you can't win, there's no alternative. Trump is going to be indicted and charged and can't run. You can't be on Twitter, you can't have a job. And so people started to say, okay, well, we still exist. We're still here, we still have these concerns. What do we do now? And then people start to say, well, we need a revolution. And I'm one of the only people saying, no, we should still engage in the process and talk with each other. And it's not all one-sided. I think there's problems on the left and the right, but I certainly think it takes two to tango.
Okay, so we agree. I think that there are problems on the left and the right, and I don't disagree with some of the things that you just said.
They're the same. They are in agreement.
A different conclusion that there are some things that people should be deplatformed for. Not that they can't say it where they want to say it, but I think that it's a right of anybody.
Okay, top 3 things. What do you think?
There's a difference between being able to say that you're proud of your white heritage and also being just flat out racist. I think that there's a difference between saying you're proud of your Christian heritage and the white culture from what you come from and Nazis, or that you adopt the Nazism
The cuts
as
are kind
a
of bad.
legitimate ideology.
The cuts
think
are
that
bad.
There's a difference between saying that you disagree with the United States policy as it relates to Israel and saying that the Holocaust didn't exist.
I was like, Mom, Dad, Hitler was awesome. Hitler was right. And the Holocaust didn't happen. And my parents were like, we cannot believe.
Those would be top 3 things in my mind. I know that you believe that some people took you out of context, and I do agree. Look, on both the right and the left, there are these gatekeepers, 100%. And look at me. The mainstream press just destroyed me for 7 years without any real kind of reflection about what they were doing. I do think that, some of those things are legitimate reasons to say, we don't want you on our, on our commercial platform. Would you agree with that? I mean, you just said, for instance, people calling for like an armed revolution, like people calling for actual violence. You're opposed to.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm against violence,
Yeah.
and I do think those are one of the legitimate things that should be taken from the platform. There's a lot of the stuff on social media I don't agree with, but again, what started to happen is there was this like editorial censorship where certain ideas were banned, and it was such a broad brush and also totally opaque and ad hoc. You'd be on YouTube, like I was, for example, they banned me for life and didn't even give me a reason. Not a specific quote, not a specific infraction. And so you don't know what the rules are, you don't know what the process is, they just take you down. And especially now, when everything is digital, that's not just the social platforms, it's the other ones like Uber, Airbnb, whatever. It feels like you're being denied almost something like a civil right, because the social platforms are the modern public square. Increasingly with Uber, Airbnb, the banking apps, you can't live your life without the tech platforms. And it felt like if you just simply had the wrong opinions or you were the wrong kind of person, you were being deprived of like a basic civil right or being able to participate in society. So, and I think maybe that's an area of collaboration where we recognize maybe it is a civil right to use the digital platforms, but here are the rules. Here's what you can say, here's what you can't say, here's the process. Maybe there's a reconciliation mechanism, but I mean, the censorship was just out of control. I don't think anyone disagrees there's a reasonable limit, though.
Yeah, no, I guess what I'm saying is that I don't see that as a result of left-wing or right-wing ideology. I view that kind of level of deplatforming. Look, I was debanked. I was debanked before I was ever even charged with anything. I lost every bank account. It took me, 9 months once they, the Trump administration, said that they were starting an investigation into me to be able to actually get a bank account again. And I don't want to tell you the bank because tomorrow they may debank me again. But my point is that those people are incredibly identifiable. I've been talking and going around and I say things like, I don't think we are nearly as divided as they're telling us we are. Because I do believe that there are an identifiable group of people that are responsible for an enormous amount of the discord and division because they make money off of it. I think that these social media companies that are controlled by what 3, 4, 5, individuals have made it clear that they only care about one thing. They only care about how much money they can produce for themselves and the people that hold stocks in their company. Even to the degree where we know for certain that they're driving teenage girls to the highest levels of suicide by a factor, like exponential factors, directly related to the content that they're being pushed, and they won't do anything about it.
Right.
And so, to the same degree, I think they, a lot of what you call wokeness was maybe an illegitimate, but a financial decision based on a lot of these
Corporate psyop, maybe.
corporate psyop.
Thank you.
I mean, by the way, exactly.
I just wanted to back up real quick. So you talked about certain people going too far. About 2.5 months ago, I visited a whites-only community in Hardy, Arkansas. And I don't know why. I guess coming from like a more like left-wing place, I'm from Seattle. I kind of assumed there was like a united front on the right for some reason. So I'm out there, I'm chilling with these dudes. They're like sword fighting, having barbecues. Overall, it was a good time for them. I had a hard time connecting with them because I don't agree with them, but it's all good. I was having fun for a couple days. And then like right as I was there, I guess you had hit them up on X or something and said like, hey, I don't want to associate with you guys. What happened there?
Well, that was really more of a personal disagreement with the guy that founded it.
Yeah.
But I do think it's an interesting project, and it's interesting that got so much pushback, this whites-only community, because you know what? If you go to a lot of these different neighborhoods in major cities, there are ethnic enclaves, and it's not like there's an explicit rule that you have to be a certain ethnicity, but we all know
they were
in
certified
Chicago and New York and LA, you got certain neighborhoods where it is 80, 90% one ethnicity.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of white people that say we kind of want something similar. I don't think there's anything.
But Nick,
Okay, let's back up. If you want to talk about the histories of New York and Chicago, I feel like that was also a conscious decision that was made like after the Civil Rights Act.
Blacks only. It's in Cabrini Green, where Mayor Daley made everybody that was black live in the Cabrini Green. I mean, it's not. It wasn't by choice. It's not by choice that these ethnic enclaves are 80 or 90%, whatever that ethnicity is. It's because that's the only place in which they had an opportunity to live unbothered, or where they were told that they had to live because of the historical fact that they could not move into other neighborhoods. You could not move into parts of South Chicago without, being stoned.
Right.
Literally, right?
Yeah.
And so, like so it's not as if those ethnic enclaves are there by choice. And so that
also ethnic enclaves do exist for like specific variations of different Europeans. Like there is like places that are chocolate. Like South Philly's full of Italians.
There's Little Italy and there's Little Korea.
So I think the issue,
Japan.
I always like, what confused me the most about the whites only community is like there's just so many different kinds of white people in America. So like to establish a unified white culture with a place so diverse and full of like different regional flavors just kind of felt confusing to me because that could mean a different thing depending on what part of the country or what European enclave you originated from. Like we're Irish people from the Philly area. Can you compare that to like, surfers in San Diego or even like, Italian Americans in Staten Island? I don't know, everything just feels so different. So when I got there, I was trying to identify what they meant by white culture. It wasn't really based on shared like cultural practices, but more the exclusion of people who weren't white. So they weren't like stoked on being European necessarily. They were more just like, oh, we're here because those people aren't here. So it just kind of felt more negative than constructive.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not really involved with that project in particular, but I think that, look, I mean, you talk about the anger that's out there and the frustration, and I think part of the frustration, let's be honest, is that white people do feel like we are being boxed out in major cities in the country, and it feels like, look, there's a little Haiti, and there's various ethnic enclaves where you get that local culture, and they do their, cultural festivals and that sort of thing, and white people feel like they're being pushed out, and they want a space where things are familiar.
Do you feel the same way about the Italian festival that happens in every city?
Well, here's a good example.
Or St. Patrick's Day?
Well, there's no Irish neighborhood in Chicago. Little Italy.
Sure there is.
I mean, there's some remnant in Bridgeport.
Yeah.
It's important to note that, like, and I'm not trying to get into like a shouting match here, but like, as a family coming from a family who did leave Philadelphia in the 60s because of black migration from the South after the Civil Rights Act was passed, there was a sort of like mass flight of white people into the suburbs, and that kind of led to a homogenization of different cultures because they rushed so fast to build these like identical strip mall suburbs that it was very hard to maintain cultural bonds that made different European and white neighborhoods unique around like the 1950s and before. So I feel like the mass suburbanization is also a big big factor that led to those like cultural bonds breaking.
Yeah, but why did that happen? I mean, a lot of the suburbanization is because of the race riots in the 1960s. People moved out because of the violence. You know, my grandfather was in the National Guard in Chicago when, after MLK got assassinated, the whole West Side burned to the ground.
Yeah.
And people didn't want to be around that anymore.
Why were there riots?
MLK Jr. was assassinated.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so does that justify burning down the city?
No, I
which
didn't
they
say
never
it
recovered?
justifies it.
Yes.
Jeetvance Grouper just resubscribed.
No, thank you
Okay.
very much.
But it sure justifies an enormous amount of the anger, the same kind of anger that you feel about being left out, the same kind of anger that you're expressing right now about the idea that you're culturally irrelevant, that you don't have a place in society. Imagine if you were a 26-year-old black man in 1968 and saw your hero be assassinated. And
I
nothing being
saw
done about
Trump get shot in the ear, and
Did he?
I saw Charlie Kirk get shot, and I didn't see any cities get burned down. It's funny how
I
that
think
works.
it's a very, very, very different thing. I think
How
it's
is that different?
absolutely
Charlie
wonderful
Kirk
thing.
got shot in the neck.
Yeah,
And liberals celebrated
whom?
all over social media by Tyler Robinson,
yeah. Who is what?
who is some liberal guy.
He is?
Mhm.
But
He's got a transgender boyfriend.
does that makes him liberal? Because he's transgender? Because
I think
he's
so.
gay?
Well, because he's got a transgender boyfriend, yeah, I think so.
It makes him liberal.
I think he was liberal, yeah.
Okay. Well, he didn't come from a liberal family. He didn't come from a liberal enclave. He didn't come from a liberal background. He's not a minority. He was a Mormon, correct? And grew up in a Mormon household. And he went to a largely Mormon college. And he ended up committing an act of violence, according to the FBI and the authorities in Utah that charged him. How does that in any way compare to what we're talking about? I'm not justifying the violence that occurred after the death of Martin Luther King, but you're saying that that person, this Tyler, whoever his name is was as disenfranchised as the African American community in 1968 in inner cities?
Well, the question is who we want to live around.
I'm not living around blacks. Sorry, I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry.
And in the 1960s, the West Side burns down. We don't want to live around that. We don't want to live around a city
That's not
that's
when
burning
that
down.
happened. That's not when the white flight happened.
It
That's
is.
not- no,
It was
is
a big
not.
response to it,
is no-
absolutely.
100% not. You
Absolutely.
make these historical connections that don't exist. Part of it was potentially, but before that, what Mayor Daley did is made Chicago the most segregated city in the entire United States, other than Boston. When you would come from the South to Chicago, African Americans from the South, blacks in the South coming to Chicago would say that Chicago was twice the level of segregation and racism that occurred in the South. And so it wasn't as if you're coming into a situation in which you're feeling in any way enfranchised by the community and the situation that you're in. And as many people left simply because of the idea that someone was black moving into their neighborhood as the violence that occurred after the assassination of Martin Luther King. So the numbers actually, pre-1968 when King was shot, you had more people leave the city because of the
This is just like boomer stuff. Boomers are this way.
desegregation because of the 1964 Civil Rights Act than you did after the riots.
I think that's just not true. I think that the race riots
No, the truth is that it's just technology, and as technology happens, it's like why people get moved around is because there was factories, and the underclass, whether it's white or black or whatever, they're gonna ship around because they have nothing to hold them. They don't have any like reason to stay, and that's why it's like it's kind of a misnomer. It's getting a temperature. It's like a warning light on a car rather than the problem that the warning light is kind of like you need to be looking at things like it's like a warning light rather than the engine itself.
riots were a huge driver of white flight to the suburbs. I think it's just dishonest to say that's not the case.
Okay, so what's your point about all of this?
Well, we're talking about where people want to live.
Yeah, I know. So like what in 2026?
Well,
what's the
okay,
point?
how about in 2020 when Minneapolis burned to the ground? Or how about in the summer of 20?
Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, I cursed out the Indians who tried to scam me on the phone. Yeah, like the reason the Indians are trying to scam me on the phone is because of the phone, right? It's not if they didn't have the phone. Like the way people behave is secondary to technology and secondary to systems of like capital, and like because there's a way to get money from the phone, the Indians are on the phone, right? If there wasn't the phone, the Indians wouldn't be doing that.
20 in Chicago.
Minneapolis didn't burn to the ground.
It didn't?
No, I mean there were
BLM
parts
didn't
of it, but
destroy
like,
dozens of
If you
structures?
guys need a physical witness to what happened in Minneapolis, there were many structures that burned to the ground. Not the city, but there was, I would say, between 40 to 50 buildings off of Lake Street in the south side that did burn to the ground. But most of the city was intact, but it was quite an intense situation.
People don't want to live around that. People don't want to live around that. You know, in Chicago, it rolled on into the summer, and it wasn't, you know, let's say, the anger of the oppressed and the disenfranchised.
So
They
who's at
were
fault?
looting. They were looting and
Who's
carjacking.
they?
The criminals.
Are you saying that the problem with the 26-year-old white kid living in suburbia outside of Chicago and his feeling of being disenfranchised is because there was looting and rioting in Minneapolis by black people, and it's black people that are doing it?
Yeah, I mean, the problem with
Are you
Austin
really?
Metcalf was that he got stabbed in the neck at a track meet. And the problem with our city in Chicago is that the Magnificent Mile is gone. Water Tower Place is gone because of all the crime.
Nick, and the time of an entire generation of African Americans is that they've been getting.
Yeah, this is just this is like arguing with the boomer. So it's fun, but it's that Hitler quote about arguing with Jews, but just adapted to a boomer.
Killed by cops for decades.
That's
What are
just
you
not
talking
true.
about, Nick?
Because they commit crime. And listen, it's not.
Nick,
What?
that's not true. It's
Oh,
not true. Are
it
you saying
is.
that police brutality as it relates and racism in the police force, in the way in which police treat African Americans? Nick, you could grow up here like I did between Wilmington and Philadelphia. And if you were a black dentist and you lived in Wilmington and you commuted to Philadelphia, the chances of you being pulled over by a state trooper, either Delaware or in Pennsylvania, are about 50 times that would be if it was a white guy. 50 times. And
We're
so what
talking
you're
about-
trying to tell me is that the problem in America right now is that a 26-year-old white kid who lives in suburban Chicago doesn't feel like he has access because he's been canceled or he's been woke, and the problem is black people.
I didn't say the problem's black people.
Well, you just did, Nick. You just
I said the problem is crime, and we know who's doing the crime in Chicago. The carjackings, shootings, teen takeovers. We know why there's no business on the Mag Mile anymore, and it's because they steal cars, they drive them through windows. And listen, black people are some of the biggest victims of the black crime. But we're not allowed to talk about it because of the racial
What do you mean
dimension.
you're not allowed to talk about it? We're talking about it right here. You
guys,
have a platform in which
I think
millions
we're-
of people listen to
I
you,
think-
Nick.
I think-
Millions.
Well,
What?
after Elon had to buy Twitter and open it up. It wasn't like that before. I was banned from everything for many years. So no, you weren't allowed it. You're right. We can talk about it now, but that's only because the good guys
Nick.
won.
Hey, what's up, guys? People who trap the Garrett. Stock work, file for online healing. Number 5 or friend, maybe $55 replat major. It's time.
Being banned on Twitter to being on YouTube to creating
I'm
an
not on
entire show.
YouTube.
I know you're not, but now you have Kick and now you have all of these other things. You have
Bro's
an
got Kick.
enormous platform. I want to find common ground of how much of a shithead Donald Trump is. We can get to, we can get there. Okay. What I don't understand is how you didn't recognize that in 2016, and how you didn't recognize that in 2020, and how you didn't recognize that in 2024, because Donald Trump
I did in
hasn't.
24.
Because Donald Trump hasn't changed. Donald Trump hasn't changed at all. Donald Trump has been Donald Trump since he came out of the womb of a woman that was an immigrant to this country. And so what
True.
I want to know, though,
True.
is that I don't know how we get past this idea that the biggest problem that you have that with your personal situation and how you extrapolate that to the situation of other white kids that are your age, that feel disenfranchised, that feel left out, that feel they don't have a shot at the American dream, is because of black and brown people, because of Mexicans, because of Venezuelans, because of Haitians, it's always other, Nick, with you. It seems to me, and I've listened to a lot of the stuff. It's always them. We need to build a wall. Where's the wall, Nick? He never built the wall. Why'd you vote for him in 2020? Why'd you vote for him in 2024?
I didn't vote for him in 24.
Okay. My point being is that whenever you identify your problem as being something that is other, that you can point to, that's a minority, that is a group of people, that's the Jews, before, remember, all of us, it was the Irish Catholics who were all committing the crime, who weren't allowed into bars, who weren't allowed into, because you know why? Because they were dirty, poor, non-Europeans. They were Irish. Every time it's wrong.
Facts.
Every time history has proven that to be wrong in the United States of America. Every time.
Facts.
Inclusion has been our greatest strength. Diversity has been our greatest strength. And I hear you talk about this idea of white culture. What fucking white culture are you talking about, man? What
Shakespeare, Dante, Mozart. We're in Philadelphia. The the founding fathers.
Yeah.
That's your white
How about
culture.
the Count of Monte Cristo? Would you consider that part of our white culture?
Sure.
Okay. Well, it was written by a black man in France in
Yeah.
the 1700s.
In a milieu
So-
of European civilization.
So what?
Because
So
you're
what? It's
picking
not
out,
We're gonna
you're picking
got
out
you
one
there.
example. It
I'm
really
not
is.
just picking up one
It
example.
really is.
Nick.
Listen.
Nick, I'm
You
not.
got
I'm
him
really
there.
not.
there.
Hey
That
guys,
was a
I
good
think we're
gotcha.
reaching what's called a rock in a hard place. Let's talk about Israel.
No, we're
Well,
not.
let me
No, we're getting
respond
through.
to this
It's
because you're telling me
So,
I'm
no,
always
but here-
blaming the other.
No, Nick, for real. Here's the thing, is that the way that you talk and throw out these historical facts, which, by the way, aren't fucking facts. Okay?
Which ones aren't
No,
facts?
well, as it relates to the Civil Rights Movement in 1968, and the reason why we're out in the problem that we're in is because the Civil Rights Act passed in 1964. Dr. Martin Luther King was killed and shot by a white racist, white supremacist in 1968 on a balcony of a motel. That's the root of our trouble, because an entire people that have been disenfranchised and enslaved for over 400 years.
We're sick of hearing about that, though. It's 2026.
You may be sick of hearing about it, but you know what? They aren't. And I'll tell you what, Nick, and
Get
here's the other
over
thing.
it. Get over it. It's America.
Okay, but Nick, you can say stuff like that, okay, without having to say it like that. And look,
That's not how it started, though.
This is a legitimate argument, but it's, Nick.
Guys, Nick, Hunter,
Yeah.
what do you guys make of the concept of community collapse? Have you guys heard of this?
No.
So it's got nothing to do with race, got nothing to do with money, but this is kind of a crazy stat. So in 2019, before COVID, 76% of Americans said they were a part of an in-person community that gave them some kind of value. After COVID, and this year, it was 19%.
Right,
So I think
bowling
that
alone.
politics and race aside, one of the biggest issues is the collapse of social bonds, third spaces, communities, in-person engagement, which comes with loneliness, more time online, and more division. I understand. I feel like you guys aren't going to agree. I want to talk about what you guys think can be done on an individual and community level to stop people from hating each other and to create more belonging and engagement.
Discussions.
number one-
Discussions like these.
I think this,
The classic. Discussions like these.
okay, for real.
Podcasting.
No, not podcasting, this discussion. For me to be able to sit down with someone who I so vehemently disagree with and find some kind of common ground.
But I
don't
mean,
wanna- look,
guy at home who's
Yeah.
watching this on his phone just thinking, I wish I could go outside, but I don't know anyone.
okay, well, here's what I'm talking about. It's all about connection. It is all about actually connecting with people. And I'm not talking about digitally connecting with people anonymously online. I'm talking about actually going out and connecting with people. And I don't have an answer to that. I don't, any of us. We're in look, man, I just think that you are targeting the wrong problem, Nick. I think that our biggest problem right now doesn't have to do with this cultural divide or racial divide or religious divide or the idea that America is becoming less white or culturally relevant anymore. I think our biggest problem is literally an oligarchy that is inflaming every single division that we have.
And
by the way,
yeah.
and they're out for you, man.
Yeah.
Just as
I
much as anybody else.
Why and I agree.
But I'm
So
saying-
those platforms that we talk about that you're not allowed to be on because Elon's out on the platform. Elon doesn't give a shit about anything other than one thing.
But Hunter, I just want to say,
money.
real quick,
Money and
Well,
his money.
I don't necessarily even agree with that.
Okay, well,
Okay,
you
but
may
real
not
quick,
agree with
back
that
to what I was
because you
saying.
don't
So
want to piss
you're-
off Elon
you're
Musk.
No, it's not, Elon doesn't even like me,
Yeah.
but I just
You're
disagree.
talking about the oligarchy, right? Like
Yeah.
these billionaires, right?
Yeah.
Like the goal of corporate capture of these industries is community collapse. They are trying to engineer things to make it antisocial. They want to eliminate every single small business. They want to make everyone a single person shopper, no carpooling, like to be a lonely consumer who only buys things for themselves online and doesn't talk to anyone in real life. That's what they want in real life. Like all this data center shit, like everything they're doing is in a way trying to break up in-person engagement. And I feel like for you guys, it might be hard to answer because both of you guys are what they call like controversial public figures. Like there's places that you, like in 2018, if you were to go to a dive bar in, let's say, Poplar Bluff, Missouri, you would have been in danger. You know what I mean? At that time. For
Yeah.
you were in danger physically in a left-wing city. It's just the truth. So I feel like you guys have been deprived of the ability to have normal lives. You especially, you know, but I mean you in general, but I feel like, you know, your controversies came a little bit later in life. For you, I feel like you haven't even been able to grow up as a normal person. Is that accurate to say?
That's true. Well, and in terms of, you know, building community back and everything like that, you know, the data says that really the loss of society is the fact that we don't encounter people anymore. For example, on your way to work or, you know, in ways that are unexpected. People wake up in their house, which is separate from everybody else. They get in their car by themselves, drive to work by themselves, you know, and then they meet with their colleagues and everything, but then they go right home. Go home, have a beer, watch Netflix until they go to bed. Next day starts all over again. And so, you know, I think it has a lot to do with maybe how we we structure the cities. I think, honestly, a big part of it, there's like this abundance mindset with liberals. Liberals want to have prosperity and everything like that. How can you have that when the cities are not safe? I think that one of the ways, for example, if you want to have those encounters that are unplanned or spontaneous, they're going to happen maybe on the subway, on the bus, on your way to work. People don't want to ride the subway anymore. People don't want to ride the bus. They don't
I just feel
like
that
it's
if
safe.
you look at the data, like right now, 2026, I think 2025 had the lowest homicide rate of any year in America for like the past 4 years. I feel like if you compare data from the 90s, like the cities, I get what you're saying, but the cities I have noticed are a lot safer. They're also, becoming more expensive as well. It could have something to do with it.
You're absolutely right. It's what you're saying, Nick, is impossible to refute, right? Because everybody
GPT
has an
5.6
experience.
takes 10 hours, annotated 36. Yeah, you kind of want to use a local model, there's like smaller models to annotate. What you want to be doing is you need to have the model loaded into memory before, and then basically what I was doing, you basically convert it to audio, take the audio, get a transcription from the audio, then use a smaller like visual model to analyze, like have a few prompts, like what's happening in the video, who is doing what, and then basically combine the transcript, the audio, the text to, that's very fast. The audio to text is very, very fast and very cheap to do. And then combine that with the visual, what's happening, and then pop that into another model, which will then combine the transcript and the thing with context.
With violence or witnessing a crime, or whether it's just in their local newspaper or not, is that I don't think that is in any way limited to only urban environments. I take the top 10 poorest red states in the country, and their crime rates are 10 times what many urban centers are.
So you'd be comparing like West Virginia, coal country, disenfranchised to like an urban neighborhood.
Yeah, in terms of per capita crime, in terms of
I mean,
per
that's not
capita
even true.
murder, in terms of per capita child sexual abuse, yeah. I think the things that people really care about, things like that, is their own
That's just
personal
not true.
safety.
Yeah.
It is not limited to African American urban or Latino American urban environments. It's not. It exists. Carjackings do happen, but you know where they happen? They happen in Biloxi, Mississippi, just as much as they happen in Chicago.
I'm skeptical of that.
I mean,
Yeah, it's not true. Also, it's like you should. They're hung up on this. He's hung up on this. It should just be like, okay, well, that's happening. Well, so now, if we take it as a given, what do we do about it? That's where you to argue this point is like superfluous, because this is still just a symptom of something. You want to go up the whatever cause and effect.
I just think the idea of like safety,
by
safety at
the
risk,
way,
crime has been. I feel like media has overblown the level of danger.
Everybody's going to fact check both of us on this, and
Yeah.
but I agree with you. But my point about all of it is that you can always point to a reason, Nick. There's never been a time in which there hasn't been crime in major urban areas where you pack a lot of people in. You're right, though, is that the difference between us feeling like each other are neighbors, and that we can find some common ground is the fact, you can live in existence now, and by the time you're 56 years old, and never really have to leave your house to make a living, you don't go to the community center anymore. And I don't know how to fix that. And I certainly don't know how to fix it in the age of
politics,
AI.
right? Because community is like an essential human need, if not the most important thing. So when you are deprived of that, you're more likely to look for a radical solution and be like, everything's broken. We need to try something really out there. So you might embrace something more reactionary on left or right to be like, fuck this, we need something new. And I'm not trying to draw this like male loneliness, like incel pipeline that the media tries to do all the time. But do you see a connection there between like people being lonely and having less friends, and subcultural
absolutely.
choice taking over community value systems or community engagement, and people just like driving to the extreme?
100%. I think social dislocation is probably the _1 problem of our times, because you look at the young people, and you're right, it is one of those essential human needs, is to connect and have that sense of familiarity, to be seen, to see and to be seen. And that's something young people don't have. And I think, by the way, you look at the way young people socialize and even the mentality, I think a lot of young people have this absolute drive to go to college. Why? It's an extension of high school. And what do high school and college have in common? it's a community. You're in the quad. You can see and be seen. There's sort of like a status, reputation. You're constantly involved with other people. And I think everybody, young people, look at when they graduate from college like falling off a cliff and now life is over. Because now you just have your job, the gym, and going back home, and that's it. And this is why a lot of young people then want to move to the big cities. Got to go to New York, got to go to Chicago or LA where it's happening. And they want to get a condo or an apartment downtown because they want to go to the bar scene and extend college a little bit longer. And I think that's just not really a sustainable way to have a society. There has to be a way for people to still have that sense of community outside of, let's say, college and high school, even into their adulthood, and then into their old age. So yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest problems going on. And I agree. I think it drives, even to your point about the whites-only community in Arkansas, I think it is driving these, let's call it ghettoization or insulation of people going into these artificial values-based communities.
Yeah.
Because where are you going to find people? Go online, start spouting about politics, or, even not just for incels and right-wingers, but even on the left. Someone like Tyler Robinson, he's on Discord. He's on Discord with all of the Overwatch players and all the LGBTQ or whatever. And I think that, there's a tendency there where everybody kind of amplifies some of the resentment or feelings there. So I agree, that's a huge driver.
So for you, like back in high school when you were like first kind of starting to use the internet and all that, did you build most of your community in person outside Chicago, or was it mostly online?
When I was in high school or college?
High school.
High school, I had real friends in Model UN. That was my favorite thing. So that was.
But you were still creating like some kind of content at that time.
Not in high school, no.
Okay, so you went to BU.
Yes.
Were most of your friends like classmates there? Like when did you start to kind of build your online persona and community around your content?
It wasn't until I left college. So to that point, I had friends in college. And then when I left college and started my show independently, then it was all people online. And everybody I knew was people from my community for the most part.
But your cancellation from mainstream platforms was effectively the same thing as like a community collapse for your personal life, right?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even say it was just the cancellation, but even more just returning home from college.
What do you think would have happened to you, like career-wise and personal life-wise, if you never would have been mainstreamed? I mean, I guess removed from major social media platforms.
Oh, it'd be a lot easier to make friends, let's say, because, being banned on Instagram, you might as well be dead. In Generation Z, that's how everybody sees each other, meets each other, talks to each other. So I think I probably have a wider, livelier circle.
Do you feel like you had less friends after that?
No, I'd say it's about the same.
No, but I mean, you said that you feel like it would have been easier to make friends.
It would have been easy to make more friends, yeah, sure.
So aside from your career, how was your personal and social life affected in those following years?
Well, it's brutal, I mean, because everybody that I knew from high school is on Instagram, on Facebook, and I'm just not on there. It's almost like you're removed from the earth. For Generation Z, I understand for older people, for different generation, people still meet up or stay in touch in other ways. But if you're not online as a young person,
the game it's building right now. We're adding in the bop it.
Well, be dead.
Do you think you would have said some of the more extreme things that you did say if you, I guess, were allowed to remain on the mainstream internet?
Absolutely, yeah.
Looking back, and I'm not trying to get you to take something back necessarily. What's one thing that you said when you were younger where you're like, fuck, wish I could take that back?
I don't know if I regret what I've said. It's just how you say it.
Yeah, can you think of an example of when you listen back to something and you're like, geez, I wish I could.
Yeah. So I did this rally in 2023 called Fuentes Rally 2. And the one comment I said, we're talking about a spiritual battle between Christians and everybody else. And I said, we're in a holy war. I said, and we're going to make them die in a holy war. And the second I said that, I was like, didn't mean to say that. It's an extemporaneous speech. So you don't rehearse it. You just say things. And I was like, didn't mean that. Shouldn't have said that. So it's always the how. It's always in the delivery that I...
Nick, I can think of about 4 things that I really wish you would take back right now. But
Like what?
The cookies in the oven?
Well, that's a joke.
But it's not, Nick. My wife is Jewish. My son is Jewish. No, Nick. I promise you. Don't get mad.
I'm not mad.
Okay,
It's
I know. But okay. But you've got to understand how incredibly, whether it's a joke or not, it's a lived experience passed down from generation to generation, whether or not and by the way, not just from the Holocaust, not just from 1939 on, 2,000 years of history.
Bro, it got physical.
Forget
right
about Israeli politics and Netanyahu.
Oh, it got
because
physical
I think we
right
agree
there.
about Bibi Netanyahu. I'm positive we do, and I've listened to you talk about it. But you got to understand. Look at me, man.
I see.
It hurts. It hurts.
Does it?
Nick, I promise you it does. When you compare my wife's family to cookies going to an oven, It hurts, and you've got to understand that. And by the way, I'm looking at you, and I believe that you do know that.
See, that's where you
Nick,
lose me. That's where you lose me.
Okay, Nick. Okay, I'm telling you.
Well,
It
listen,
hurts,
are we
dude.
here to talk, or are you here to lecture me and
Okay,
preach
no,
to
you're
me?
right. Let me listen.
Okay.
No, so you're right.
So
You're right.
this is the
Okay.
thing, because, you know, and I think this is a
Deep
disconnect.
learning
I
moment.
think that the left, and even people on the right, they're losing the young people. Why do people love me? Not in spite of, but because of the outrageous things that I say. Not in spite of, but because I say offensive things. Because I, let's say, drop the N-word on a video or something. It's because people are sick of the preachiness, the
Nick.
lecturing.
Okay, I'll listen
they
to what
really
you
are.
say. But Nick, I disagree. I think that you're appealing to the lowest common denominator of thought. If you're hating on the people that they think are the reason for their suffering, then you must be on their side. I don't think that you believe that about the Holocaust. I think you think the Holocaust did happen. But forget about whether or not you think that it is used politically in a way that is obtuse and wrong. But I think that you do believe that. And I think that you have to. Like, what's your cultural heritage?
I'm Italian, Mexican, and Irish.
Mexican. When did they come in Italian? When did the Mexicans come? When did the Irish come?
Mexicans came turn of the last century.
Yeah.
Italians came in the 1860s.
Yeah.
Irish came in the early 1900s.
Okay, so maybe you wouldn't care about something that is like grossly offensive just on the face of it and think that, oh, why can't people just believe that that's funny? But you got to understand, it's from the perspective of somebody that has that trauma, and I think that there is such a thing as generational trauma, and those stories are passed down generation to generation. When you say something like that, they completely shut off. They can't hear another thing that you're saying about this cultural disconnect, about losing communities, about the feeling of being left out or left behind in a world in which there no longer is this sense of community. All the other things that you say. Everybody else is left. And what you do pick up, you pick up the ones that hear the dog whistle. You pick up the ones that say, yeah, that's the way that I feel, because it's radical. It's like he's willing to say the thing that nobody else will say in this environment. And then you get, an enormous amount of niche, but love from that. And I just don't believe that you believe that. I don't believe that you think that it was appropriate for you to say something like that. I don't think you believe that it's appropriate to say women shouldn't vote.
Let's give Nick a second to respond to the first thing.
I know, I talk constantly. That's how I do this.
It's all good. It's all good.
I apologize.
I get it, and I understand that perspective, and it is offensive, and it is provocative, and that's sort of what makes it funny. I mean, what we would say in our generation is edgelording. We're being edgy. We're being provocative. And I think that it is that kind of overbearing sense for our entire...
Nick, I'm the king of edgelord.
Well,
I'm the king
in
of
a
being
certain way.
provocative.
Let's let Nick explain
I know.
the psychology behind
it's
edgelording.
that overbearingness that my generation's had our entire lives. That's not appropriate. That's not funny. Think of the trauma. That's racist. That's white supremacist. That makes it funny. That makes it different, interesting. And let me grant, by the way, I think that now, and this is maybe a concession towards you, now that my kind of humor has become mainstream and popular, I don't even think that that's funny anymore. People do the edgelording thing. It's become so commonplace and so tired. I don't think it's that funny or impressive. That's a big part of why I kind of moved past it, because 10 years ago, it was treated like sacrilegious. And there's something funny about the fact that you could say a word or make a joke and make people lose their minds and freak out, and it was like an international incident if you said the wrong thing. And I think that's what made it tempting, especially for a young person. You want to rebel. You want to be defiant. You want to be a little revolutionary or something. Now, as time has gone on, I think that's become a fad. Everybody does it. It's lost its power. And I think that, by the way, part of why we're getting less of it is because instead of getting the preachy lecture from the left saying that's not appropriate, people just roll their eyes. Now, when an edgy white person says the N-word, people roll their eyes and go, really? That joke again? People hear someone wears a Nazi costume, makes a Holocaust joke. People go, really? That joke again? It's not impressive. It's not funny anymore. We've seen it before. And ironically, that is what makes you get less of it, when you disempower those things by not giving them this over-the-top reaction, pretending like it's some great travesty.
So you think the new counterculture is going to be woke again?
No, I think it's a synthesis.
A synthesis of post-edgelordism and wokeism?
Yes,
Whoa.
because I think that
Whoa.
wokeism
Sounds good
had
to me.
its excesses.
Yeah.
Edgelording also has its excesses. And I think now we're finding a middle ground between saying the edgiest thing we can think of with no regard for anyone and saying everything is racist. You know, if you say something, you should lose your job. We're finding a middle ground where, you know, maybe it's tastefully offensive in small doses, less is more.
So it sounds like you believe in the survival of the American experiment.
Yeah, I really do. And listen, I don't think everything about wokeism was bad necessarily.
What's the best thing about wokeism?
I think that genuinely it has made people more respectful and empathetic. Because let's be honest, 20 years ago, let's say when I was growing up, I think there was a lot of cruelty. And I think there were some hateful attitudes. And I think as time has gone on, this younger generation, they may not be even left-wing. They may not be what you'd consider woke, but I think they are respectful of people that have different ideas or, you know, a different way of life or from a different culture. You know, we make jokes all the time about the fact that I'm like a far-right guy and I'm Mexican. People say I'm a white supremacist, I'm Mexican. And people make a joke that a lot of far-right people are Hispanic. And I think that's a consequence that there's very little genuine racial hatred in anybody's DNA anymore, or any kind of hatred. And I think that's positive, but that went too far. I think some of the other stuff went too far as well.
You know, one of these strange things about same politics, but kind of same experience. It even indicated strangers picking through his texts, his private photos, his voice memo leaked somebody, some world. Previous vendors got ecosystem looking.
Good custom ad.
Every statue is if online fraud, just grow propaganda does stuff. And until it from there, every 5 bot. How many brothing? Unlimited for persons remove any websites. Watch the code channel.
No, not
60% off. All right, back to Hunter and Nick. Hablas español?
No, not a little bit, I guess, from high school.
Can you do a little bit?
Un poco.
Okay,
I don't speak it from my dad, so.
Did you grow up like around a lot of Mexicans?
No, all white people for the most part.
Did they know you were Mexican?
They did. And not gonna lie, I mean, people made fun of me for that.
What'd they say?
Well, like for example, one time when I was in Model UN, I was entering high school as a freshman. They looked at my name on the roster without knowing me. And they told me this after the fact, the leadership of the club. They said, oh, we thought you were just some Mexican kid, so we gave you a bad committee assignment.
Wow.
But see, I heard that and I laughed. I said, that's funny. You know, whereas a lot of people would say, oh, that's traumatic. I'm a victim of racism. You know, I think that's, you know, it's just a human thing.
Yeah, I always felt like growing up as like a white kid in America.
What if you went, wait, what if you were and identified as being Mexican and they came to you and they didn't tell you that's the reason that they gave you all the bad committee assignments?
That would be unfair.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm just saying.
Boom.
That's the whole point, isn't it?
And
so
I'm
you
not,
may find it funny because you pass as a white Anglo-Christian.
Do you think I pass?
What?
You think I pass as a white Anglo-Christian?
Well, I not only think you pass, I think you identify as it. Yeah.
No, kidding.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. No, but really, for real. And my point is that I heard you do an interview. Okay, and I literally on the write up here, it's like you were talking about
physical.
How you were raised on like Mark Levin in high school.
Right.
And the thing that you liked the most about Mark Levin is how cruel he was to the callers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get that. Like the joke about the cookies. It may be a joke and it may be edgelording and you may not really mean it, but you got to realize the cruelty to it. And without going like, oh, like, you know, whan, like, you know, people got to stop crying about the past. And that's the thing, is that I think that you have such an opportunity to talk to a generation of disaffected, angry, legitimately angry people in a way in which is positive without having to do that shit. And by the way, and I'm not holding you responsible for like, you know, the end of you know, my conception of Western civilization, which is different than yours, but I just don't get it. I don't get why you find the cruelty. And I think that, by the way, I think that that's why you like Trump. I mean, I'm making, you know, like a very unfair leap because his first instinct is cruelty. His first instinct is to find the fault in the other. About everything, by the way. It's not his fault that that we're in a war with Iran, that he's ended 38 times and, you know, and started 39. It's not his fault that inflation's high. It's not his fault that the wall didn't get built. It's not his fault that ICE is killing people on the streets in these places. It's just the cruelty of it. Maybe it's a generational thing. I got friends who are Jewish that are going to be really, really fucking pissed off that I'm sitting next to you. And what do I tell them? What do I tell them
Suck
why
it
it's
up.
okay for me to sit and have this conversation with you?
I guess I just have such a different opinion of that. You know, why should we have to explain ourselves to talk to anybody? And why is it that saying the wrong words or making a particular joke makes it so the Jewish person wouldn't want to watch my show? I have a lot of Jewish fans. I mean, some of my best friends are Jewish. I've had Jewish employees, and they recognize that, you know, just because I'm not necessarily nice all the time doesn't mean I'm hateful, doesn't mean, I don't even think they see it as cruel. I think they see it as it's a little rough around the edges. And maybe that's the difference, is I guess it's just attributing this weight to something that can considered a joke and maybe doesn't have a cruel intention behind it. Like, you know, Mark Levin, you got to remember at the end of the day, it's an entertainment show. It's entertainment. People call in, he gets frustrated with them. It's part of what I do on my show. And it's not always nice, but it's funny, and I don't think it's mean-spirited necessarily, and I don't think it's that big of a deal. So, I mean, the thought that I would, like, for example, with you, people would say, why do you talk to Hunter Biden? His father and his DOJ froze your money and put you on a no-fly list. I'd say, so what? I mean, it's just talking. I don't think talking's a big deal, you know?
Froze my money and put me on a no-fly list too.
There you go. See, so we got that in common.
So a different question that I have that kind of weaves everything together. How do you think like October 7th and the subsequent like pro-Palestine movement and the online worlds it created led to a growing audience on the right?
October 7th in particular?
Yeah.
Well, I think it highlighted and brought to the forefront how captured the right wing is by Israel, which is very unique. I think the Democrats and the Republicans are pro-Israel, but the Republican Party has this inextricable institutional connection with the Israel lobby, with this Likud government in particular. And I think people just started to see the hypocrisies. The hypocrisy was brought to the forefront, which is America first, but not with Israel. No new wars except for with Iran.
Under Trump, we will have no more wars. No more wars. No more wars. They said he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars. Tonight, Iran's Navy is gone.
You know, we're going to be racist and all these things, but don't you dare be anti-Semitic. Don't even, you know, think about it.
I see good things about Hitler also. Every human being has something of value that they brought to the table, especially Hitler.
So I think that on the right wing, it made it unignorable that there's this ideological institutional capture.
I just feel like a lot of straightforward, like just anti-Semite influencers were taking advantage of the post-October 7th discourse to push other ideas, broader ideas about Jewish people as a whole.
Come out and say it. Like, I think that Jews are causing a disproportionate amount of problems in the United States.
Well, I mean, I think it's hard to ignore some of those other conversations. I know that it's now become maybe in vogue to say that the Israel issue is very narrow. It's just Netanyahu. It's just the Likudniks. It's just the Israel lobby. But, you know, what would you say about someone like Larry Ellison? I mean, somebody like that, I don't think fits neatly into this, let's say, problem of Netanyahu.
As far as installing Barry Weiss and whatnot.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Because this is somebody who's not Israeli. He's not even a religious Jew, but he's ethnically Jewish and has this deep affinity for the state of Israel.
You know, I feel a deep emotional connection to the state of Israel and the Israeli people.
And is using and mobilizing his power and resources and connections to benefit Israel in the private sector. And so if you were to say, what's a law that we could pass to prevent that kind of influence, what would it look like? He's an American citizen. He can't buy a media company and hire Barry Weiss to run CBS News. And yet we recognize that's a big problem.
I just feel the conflation of like anti-Zionism and like Holocaust denial played into the hands of the Israeli propaganda apparatus. Because then they can say, hey, look, these people that oppose what we're doing in Palestine also don't think the Holocaust happened. It's a big jump in the public perception.
It was almost to me as if that was your intent. To lose any legitimacy about any argument as it relates to Israel and the Likud government, is to say those edgelording things or whatever.
Jews are money changers, bullshit artists, psychopaths, charlatans, grifters, manipulators.
I don't know anybody that can hear you after you say that, including myself. It delegitimizes everything, because I don't think that you... a little bit more compassion.
Let's try to stay a little. I don't want to do any character attacks on Nick.
I'm not attacking his character. I'm not attacking. I promise you. I'm
no,
not.
But as far as compassion, I more just mean straightforward. Do you feel like the rise in anti-Semitic online influencers post October 7th has given Israel more ammunition to work with in terms of casting everyone who opposes what they're doing as just like a rabid Jew hater?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. It doesn't matter.
In some cases, yeah, in some cases, sure. But I also think that's overstated because I think that, look, let's just be honest. I do believe the political left wants to make the Israel issue very narrow. And they want to say that the issue is this genocide in Palestine. And on some level, they think that the Israeli government is racist.
You baying pig! You bloodthirsty, violent pig dog.
And that's the problem.
Nice.
And I think that ignores that there is a broader conversation, and it does have to do with the Holocaust, and it does have to do with Jews as such, and Jewish nationalism and Jewish identity. So to try to shoehorn it in and say, well, if anybody goes further than this very narrow critique of Israel, well, they're actually helping Israel, I don't agree with that. I think we have to unpack the whole conversation.
Well, do you care a lot about Palestinians?
Not more than I care about anybody else.
So I guess that would be why that they would be like, okay, you're just taking advantage of this discourse.
I don't think it's taking advantage. I think that we can sympathize with the Palestinians while also realizing that, look, I'm an American. And so it's a tragedy what's happening in Palestine, but there's tragedies happening all over the world. My problem is that Israel has this influence over our government.
I'm a newcomer to politics, but not to backing the Jewish state.
And we're paying for the genocide, and we're furnishing them with the weapons to commit the genocide. And by the way, America is going to be held liable for this genocide, morally, but also politically and diplomatically and otherwise. But I think that people on the left, they may be guilty of maybe caring more about Palestine than they do about America.
Nick, but the left didn't cancel you. The right canceled you first. The right canceled you first, and Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire, and those were the people that canceled. They may have utilized the tools of the left, or what you call the left, to be able to do that, but it was the right that canceled you. And by the way, what I would consider a radical right. The Daily Wire, to me, is a radical right.
I don't think they're even reactionary. I don't think they're that conservative at all. Ben Shapiro, I mean, he's not.
That's Ben Shapiro.
Like he's in favor of mass migration.
In 2016, they were alt-right.
No, they were not.
Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire were to the right of Mitt Romney.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's what I mean. And that's
they
what
weren't
I'm
Mormon
saying.
conservatives.
Yeah. My point was, that's who you were canceled by.
I was also canceled by the left.
No, I know. They came along. They came along because some of the more egregious things that you said is edgelording, they came along. And whether you call it canceling or saying, like, what the fuck? This is what I call it. What the fuck? like what the fuck? And so, I don't find it funny. And just like you're able to say, well, I just think it's funny, I'm able to say, I don't find it fucking funny. I didn't find it funny then, I don't find it funny now. I didn't find it funny that some of the things that, you said about me. But I'm willing to sit here and listen to you because I want to get to this, and this is my whole point. What about fucking Donald Trump?
Yeah, we can get to that. Yeah,
how did you get, of all the people in the world, where you could look at and say he doesn't believe anything.
So for context for the viewer, Donald Trump is currently the sitting president of the U.S. For our audience abroad. The war with Iran was supposed to be over. Now we're back in business, baby. Khomeini had a pretty sick funeral if you saw the video. So you guys don't like Trump? You used to like him.
I did.
You've always hated him. He's tried to destroy your life.
Yeah.
You guys were cool. You guys hung out once at Mar-a-Lago with Kanye. You've never hung out with Trump, right? Would you want to?
No. Do I want to? Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Look, man, I would. Can we get him? Can we get him in the motel room?
So I want you to imagine.
Let's get him in
I want you to imagine he's in the motel with us.
Yeah.
That's Trump. What do you want to? How about what do you want to?
Man, cut it out. Cut it out, man. That ain't right.
Ask him.
Oh, put me on the spot. I don't want to ask Donald Trump anything because I know, and I think you would agree with me, is that Donald Trump isn't going to give me an authentic answer. Donald Trump never gives an authentic answer. He gives what people.
What bugs me about the shot, I think the shot is fine. The one thing that bugs me is that this line right here, this is bad, because it's you look over here and mentally your mind goes this is this is maybe I just have a migraine or something, I don't know, but it feels like it's you're looking right here, right, and then your corner of your eye sees this line from the chair, then the line of the bedboard or whatever, the bed headboard, and it looks like it's split in a weird way. It looks like it's cropped in a weird way. It's discontinuous. It gives me I would say that's that's actually a really bad. Besides it's fine, but this right here is just actually kind of it's making me feel sick.
as being authentic, but it's not authentic, it's audacious. It's like the example that I give that is the best metaphor for this is that he says he's 6'3", weighs 225 pounds. And everybody laughs because that's a little bit like edgelording, right? Everybody knows that he is maybe 6 feet and weighs maybe 300. And 285?
He's a big guy. He's a pretty big guy.
Yeah, big guy. But by virtue of every picture ever taken of anyone that's 6'3", he's not 6'3".
I am.
Okay? Yeah, I know you are.
Thank you.
You're 6'2.5", maybe. Maybe. But my point is that the reason I don't have a question for him is because I'm absolutely certain that he is not going to give me an authentic answer. Look, he came into the Oval Office and the transition this time. And he told my dad that he thought that he did an amazing job. He did an amazing job with the economy. He did an amazing job that with NATO, he did an amazing job, and that he got a raw deal from his side.
It's a Lynchian setup?
Particularly for Hunter. Hunter got screwed. Whatever I could do, you let me know. Bullshit. He then went out, and he has now since then done nothing but blame Joe Biden for every single one of his problems.
11 months ago, I inherited a mess. Joe Biden handed us over a country that was in very serious trouble. Biden gave us a horrible economy. And I really mean this. I think the good parts are the Trump economy and the bad parts are the Biden economy.
He mentioned my dad's name or my family's name 6 times a day in the first 100 days of this administration. 6 times a day. He does it maybe 4 times a day now because he has no answers. All he has is a finger to point. And that's all he does. My point is, I don't know what to ask him, you know. Why are you such a dick?
What does your dad think about the war?
What? What? I'm not going to get into what my dad thinks about the war. Is it really, because I don't want to get into, I don't put words in my dad's mouth, just like I wouldn't ask you what your dad thinks about the war, but your dad wasn't the president of the United States, which is a little bit different.
I don't even know if you know what's going on. I'm just an Eagles fan.
Look, all I can say is this, is that every single Israeli prime minister,
kind of like edgelording,
at least Jimmy Carter was president, has walked into the Oval Office or picked up the phone and called the president and said, we have to attack Iran. And every single one of them has said no. And they may not all have had the same exact reason, but one of the reasons they did is because they knew what the consequences would be as it relates to the lifeblood of the economy, is petroleum in the Straits of Hormuz. Every single one of them knew that. And every single one of them knew that there is no way, unless you send in ground forces, to end with certainty the nuclear program that the Iranians have supposedly been building. Every single one of them knew that the existing Ayatollah, the Ayatollah at that time, had put out a fatwa, an edict saying that they would never turn their nuclear technology into a bomb.
The supreme leader of Iran issued fatwa. Having nuclear weapons is forbidden, is haram, which means never we can have nuclear weapons.
It was a religious edict as strong as if the Pope had released an encyclical. But what did he do? He kills the Ayatollah. We get a son that now has a far more radical and far greater ties to the IRGC. And what do we have? The Straits of Hormuz are still closed. He said that they're brilliant people. I find that that's Donald Trump on everything. He said he'd end the war in Ukraine on day 1.
That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president.
And I didn't hear anybody on the right and say, that's just bullshit. It's just bullshit. He said that he would build a wall. I don't believe in building a wall. But everybody said that's bullshit. And then when he got into office, the corruption, the level of the corruption, I mean, people believed, or led to believe, that there was this thing called the Biden crime family, right? I know that you know is that I didn't do a single piece of business when my dad was president. I made basically $200,000 a year selling paintings. I picked the thing that was the furthest possible thing away from politics.
That's a hustle right there, dude.
Could. Don and Eric have done over $1.3 billion in contracts, just in contracts for underlying companies that they have an ownership stake in with the Department of Defense. Don Jr. got the largest loan ever given
100K
by the Department of Defense of a company that he bought into.
Right, we'll pause this for a second so you can see what we're up to. Yeah, so we're doing the little memory game version. Because we have this engine. We should use the engine, honestly. Use the engine. The question is, can we use the engine to make something fun? That's the real challenge. We're trying to make this little game mode here. Memory might be too hard though. Memory, it seems like it's like too might be too abstract. I don't know. Find mistakes in the font would be pretty keen. Yeah. That's easy. It's a fun idea. I'm not sure if it works though. It's fun that we could just try it out, you know. How many steps we can get though? Because I think it's too limited. Ooh. I mean, it's fun, but is it? Pause the cube game mode and add this as a mini game for a big bonus. It's too. I think it's too limited, in the sense where it's like, you're running into like the problem, which is the brain, right? Oh. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a fun little attempt at a game. Three in a row. Just shooting. Pretty good at it though. That's because the first three are like. Ooh, impressive. That's kind of crazy. Oof. You can smell a whole psychosphere while looking at this gameplay. Nice. Yeah, I think this is interesting, but I don't know. I don't know if this is fun. That's not even real. What does that even mean, Jeffy? I think this is where I'm at. I think round 12 is probably the highest I can get. Because I feel like this is something it's not. Open world MMO. It might just be the cube mode. This is interesting though. Very promising. Damn, I rotated the wrong way. Time to claim your reward, yeah. Whoops, meant to shoot. Damn. It is a fun little thing though. Maybe we try Sakobon mode. Whoops, wrong rotation. It's kind of like schizophrenic. It's kind of like a crazy person's idea of a game.
Peter Navarro picked up the phone and called DOD to get it done. My point is, I don't have anything productive to say to him that I know of. And when I listen to you, and I listen to what you do, my question is how did you not see that before? He was a disaster in 2020, a complete and utter disaster as it related to what he did with COVID, regardless of whether you think we were wearing a mask or not.
The question for Nick is, how did you not realize 6 years ago that Trump would be this sort of letdown?
Because he doesn't hold, there's no ideological core to Donald Trump.
No, I agree with you. Well, you got to realize in 2016 where Republicans were at. We had John McCain, we had Mitt Romney, and the perception on the right is that they were insufficiently conservative and that they were losers. All they do is lose because they don't fight. There was this perception that the Democrats are ruthless, fighters. Obama crushed in 2008, crushed when we thought he really should have lost in 2012. That was a Republican perception.
Let's see what this guy has to say.
One of the biggest problems that I see successful game developers have is that they fall into the sin of slot. And unfortunately, I feel like I fell into that trap to a certain degree as well. If we just take a look, once you have a successful game, this is not my flex, but 96 days ago, basically, 96 days ago, we released MO98, this game.
What did you get last month? That's the real question.
We released MO98, this game. We're almost at 500 reviews, and we actually crawled out of mixed because we kept pushing some updates. And it has made, there's no other way to say this, it has made us good money. Pretty good money, I would say. Almost 100K in, almost 100 days. Basically.
W.
And the problem with making that much money, especially if you're a studio like us that has been on fight or flight mode, or not fight or flight, but struggle to survive mode, where our general monthly income was $2,000 a month or something, suddenly it feels like there is not that much pressure anymore. And this is a problem that I also see with other developers. And I knew that this was a problem. Before MO98 came out, there's actually a Patreon video where I even talked about it. So I'm like, yeah, you see all of these game developers, and once they get a successful game, they kind of they disappear from YouTube, or they kind of stop existing because, there's less pressure. Whereas if this game would have made us 10K or something, it was just enough to keep us scraping by, then it's okay, go, we need to make the next game. And whilst I also was we need to make the next game, it took an unfortunately embarrassing amount of time. Like I said, 96 days since the announcement of our next game. And to put this number in perspective, 96 days, this is the same amount of time as it took us to develop MO98. MO98 took exactly 100 days, basically.
No, we need to find
from start
a game
of
on a grid
development to launch. And what did we?
No, that's the thing. I don't know. This is a cum skin. Do you come on, bro?
In the last 96 days? Honestly, not as much as I was hoping for. But that's changing now. And I just announced our next game, Silicon Architect. Because I realized I need to stop being a slot. I realized this, I think it was late last week. So now it's Friday, the day I'm recording this. I realized, okay, we are we're going the wrong way. We're steering the ship in the wrong direction because we are getting consumed by slotness. Everything is fine because we have 2 other games, by the way. They're in development, but it was their store pages were supposed to be out months ago by now. We were supposed to join the June Next Fest with those games, but getting the success of MO98 made us suddenly go who cares? We can take some more time. What's an extra 2 weeks? And if you say, what's an extra 2 weeks? For 5 times of 2 weeks in a row, suddenly it's past the middle of the year. It's almost August now. And we're it's August and we only have 1 Steam page released, announced, everything like that. We're not on the right track because my goal is to keep making games. But also I felt like it was hard to make games. So this is a game that probably nobody saw coming unless you were a patron, Silicon Architect, where one thing I realized from MO98 is I like the UI games. And this one is, if you can't see the vibe, this is Windows XP in this case, where you're designing CPUs in an incremental game. You can go to the store page or something yourself if you want. And we also had 2 other games actually that are in development, and that the store pages are somewhat close to release. but also not really. So like the two games we have, one is Desktop Island. These screenshots and things like that are out of date, and this store page isn't live yet. Where this game is probably going to be the next one that we're going to put live, which is a co-op incremental farming sim. At the bottom of your screen, it's a mouthful, but co-op incremental farming sim is the best way, like more like an idler. And then the other game, this was the one that we started on, me and William, right after we released MO98, is Net Profits, which is a capitalistic fishing incremental game. The problem with Net Profits is kind of like, whilst some of these screenshots may look good, we're running into some art issues that, because we're using for the PSX assets, we're using a like contractor that we pay, not like contractor, but like we outsourced it because I can't make PSX graphics, but kind of stuff happened and we are still waiting on some assets. Like this game is probably still like at best a month or like 3 weeks from store page coming live, coming announced. Like the gameplay is mostly there, but it just doesn't look good enough yet. Desktop Island, this is better. Thomas keeps telling me like, oh, this game is ready. I think some of the UI, like this is still old UI, needs like an extra pause. I'm not happy with it. And then we need to like record some of the gameplay still. And I'm also just scared of this game kind of because it's a 2D pixel art game. And, you know, I think they're always harder to sell. Like, you know, these screenshots are like, I don't know. The game looks better now. This store page was made, I think, 2 months ago or something like that, because that's how long we've been waiting with this. And then enter Silicon Architect. This was kind of a side project that I started by myself because I just like prototyping. And I don't know why these two games take longer, Net Profits and Desktop Island, than Silicon Architect. But I realized, okay, I'm juggling too much. That's kind of the realization I had the last few weeks, where also William was working on Net Profits, Thomas was working on Desktop Island, I was working on Silicon Architect, but also Thomas and William still needed me. And then I was spreading myself too thin at the same time, of like, I shouldn't be working on Silicon Architect, I should be giving my attention to the other boys as well. And then also I was like, but who the fuck cares? Because we're making money anyway. Like we were at like 10K revenue or something in the last month as well, which is good. But the problem was I was like starting to like really get like mentally fucked by the fact that we weren't shipping anything. We weren't pushing out games. We weren't doing anything. It's like all the work on your games that you do, or like your prototypes, doesn't matter for the most part if they do not see the light of day. And that's what I also realized of like, I don't want to stop working on Silicon Architect because I had some good momentum with this game. I actually can show you here. I started developing this game. There was like a first version April 24th, but that was a dumb desktop idler idea. Forget about that. I truly started developing, as you can see here, Silicon Architect V2 on like June 20th to June 21st. So a little bit more than a month. You can also see here, like I added Steamworks very quickly at the start, and I can see here, I have 93 hours played. Though that means total development time so far is like 95 hours or something, which I think is honestly a pretty good pace, about like 25 hours a week or something. And then I worked on the YouTube channel, I worked on other stuff as well. And I actually also took a week of vacation to go to Belgium with my lovely wife. But I was really like, we can't leave the summer vacation, kind of like the summer period, without having a store page live. So, okay, I realized I need to ship a game. So that's exactly what I did. I think I woke up basically yesterday morning, Thursday morning. I was like, today is work day. I said it to my wife and I put on like my shirt and she's like, are you stupid? Why you wear that? But I was like, I need to get into the mindset of, okay, today is a day that we're just going to grind hard. And today as well, which is why there's an empty can of Monster next to me. And originally,
by the way, if you guys go to Vitamin Shop, if you get a Vitamin Shop near you, whatever those stores are, you can get Gorilla Mine for $1 a can. That's too expensive for us, but right now it's a deal where if you go to Vitamin Shop, you can get $1 cans of the best energy drink, Gorilla Mind.
I hope that yesterday would be the day that I could already have the trailer.
Just some Mike Cernovich cashing out
already, because that was the main thing.
Just an
the
insider
main thing
scoop.
Stopping you usually is like the game has like some things that visually need to look better. That's kind of what Desktop Island is struggling with for the most part as well. Like there's like that one thing that always stands out. Maybe it's like a UI thing that doesn't make sense or something else, and then you fix that, but then there's like another thing that's still like not high enough quality that stands out then. And it's kind of like an infinite game of whack-a-mole. But then yesterday I was like, okay, no, we're going to work on the UI. to get the game in like a presentable state, like this, for example. And still, like, you know, I think probably this, the layout preview of like previous runs is a little bit too rough, but I'm like, you know, this is not core anymore. I don't care. I think it's more important to get it out there, and we can still update it otherwise. I think quality-wise, this game is good enough. And then also I needed validation, because if we go back to our commit history, so on June 21st, I started development, and then I think somewhere around here, June 26th, actually here. I think actually June 29th or July 1st, this is when I did my first playtest with the Patreon boys. Shout out to the Patreon boys. And then as you can see, I went on vacation for 10 days and nothing really happened, or like nothing got committed. So I knew, okay, the game has a little bit of legs. I really like this game, but I can't justify spending more than 100 hours on something that hasn't gotten like wider playtesting, wider validation, wider people like it. And it wasn't validation as in like, oh, should this game exist, yes or no, but more of like what direction to go with this game. Because this game could go two ways. Also why it actually started originally as a desktop idler, but I think actually it's a genre with a bunch of issues. I was like, I can just make this a real game instead. Then the question is, do we go more in the idle direction? Do we go more into like the Zachtronics direction? Do we go more into like the dumb incremental direction? And that's kind of what I wanted to figure out now. But I was also like, I don't want to do an extra playtest without missing out on the marketing beat of announcing my store page. So that's why the store page is out. So yesterday was work day, like I said, and I actually managed to get the build completely done, but no trailer. And I was like, it was like 7 p.m. and then the wife wanted attention, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to still spend time with the people around me that I love. So this morning I woke up, no shirt today, just a white shirt, but I'm like, okay, today is work day number 2. I'm gonna make the trailer, I'm gonna send it out, I'm gonna do like all of
What does
the
this
marketing
have to
beats
do
of
with the
the
Jews?
checklists,
It's true,
basically
that's a good
for
point.
making your Steam store page. I think, you know, I'll link it down below, but for those who didn't know it, there's like this store page checklist that I did a while back. Basically everything in here except the 7 screenshots and then like the variety is there. And you know, I was like, hey, this is actually a pretty good checklist. So once again, link down below. Because also like there's a little bit too little, like there were 2 more windows that are not visible here, but that I know, like quality assurance, as you can see. There's like 0 UI for it. I know what I want to do, but I was also like, if I want to implement a UI for this, we're looking at another 2 weeks. I'm like making it like screenshot worthy and all of that. And I was in that fight against Slot once again. And that's also the thing of like, at some point, I think it's better to ship the game if your mental state is like collapsing too much because you're not shipping anything. At least for me, that's part of my identity. I'm the game dev YouTuber who actually ships games. So I don't want to spend months and months on end without really having any games announced. Maybe one side thing I want to say as well of like how I changed my development style a bit for this game. As you can see, like I stayed moderately consistent. I stopped like doing like major commits. One of the things that I did that I don't know how to explain this, but that changed kind of my development style. Right now I'm sitting at my desk. That's where you're recording. And it's kind of like a laptop, but it's like a 16-inch pretty big laptop. And then I have my big ultra wide. It's not something that I really take with me because like every single USB port is plugged in and there's like stuff like this interface is like on top of my computer. What I actually did when we got the first payout for M198 is like we had enough money from like macOS sales that I could afford to buy
tech
like
gear. It's
the
crazy.
base model 13-inch MacBook Air M5. This thing is amazing. I'm in love with it, and I think it's part of the reason
buying
why
tech stuff.
Silicon Architect was able to release so fast with like that fast development pace, because it's just so small and light that I could basically easily do the no 0 days approach. Every single day I could just wrap out the MacBook Air, even if I just had like 15 minutes wherever I was, and then work on something, have a build, have a feature. You know, I always have my like odds and end lists. There's a lot of things. And it's like, okay, I'm just gonna do like a few things on this list. And even if I do nothing else because I have to like do videos or I have to help Thomas or William with their game, every day we make some progress. And I think that definitely helped as well, of like a lot of like incremental small progress on my incremental game. I don't know. So yeah, along with that, along with the Steam page announcement, I do also have an actual like itch page if you want to playtest the game for yourself. It's mainly bug-free. It runs in the not window mode, but like browser mode. That was an issue with M198 where the web build just didn't work.
A graph.
Here it does work. So yeah, I can put the core, I can put the heatsink on top of it, and we can run our benchmark. if you want to try it out, try it out. I don't know. This video was kind of just, I wanted to talk to you about kind of how I've been feeling and the concept of slot. Figuring out, okay, if your project kind of is like stalling, I think at some point you need to decide, what are we going to do? Am I going to lock the fuck in? And I think I mentioned this in like this recent sunk cost fallacy video. So I'm like, figure out a way to in the next 2 weeks make something playable and make something I can show and get more feedback, because that's going to like boost up your motivation bar again. And if the answer to that is no, maybe we need to like skip this game. We're not going to actually be making the game, because whilst a game is good, if the game doesn't ever see the light of day, whether that's now or a year into the future, it's kind of a waste. And I think that's something maybe that I wanted to talk to you guys about that. And maybe this also leads me into, if you have that situation where you also want to just talk to me about your game, there's actually a coaching offer. I don't know if a coaching offer is the right term, but like link down below, which is called Ship It or Skip It. Hey, where it is like you send me your build and I'd look at it. I give you some third-party objective feedback of like, should you keep working on this? Is this good? Is this bad? What do we do with this? Do we have to pivot this? Because I'm still very ready to pivot this game as well. Like I said, depending on Zectronics, passive idler, active incremental game, like one of those 3 directions kind of, and just get your game out there. I think that's the important
That might be the important thing, is get this game.
Even if it's not on Steam, on itch, for
On
example,
Steam.
like, you know, honestly, you can make
But we
really
gotta
pretty
wait for the
itch.io
other-
pages. Can I just say that? Like, I think
We locked the fuck
this is a
in,
pretty
dude.
nice looking itch.io page. This is kind of a little cheat, by the way. This is an image. So this is the Steam store page thing here. Like, this game is all available on Steam. Screenshotted this, made like a nice cutout. And then if you click this is actually a UTM link that goes to the Steam page to get more wish lists. If you are making an itch.io page, do that. And it's like, this still feels like, you know, this is a
Maybe
real
we call
game
it with
without
this.
having had to spend $100.
Maybe we say it's
on setting
good
up
and we
the Steam
start
store
on a
page
new
right now. I
project.
don't actually know what the analytics are so
While we
far.
wait for this.
We have gotten 47 views.
Because the
69
game mode, the other
views
game
this
modes
year.
aren't really clicking.
47 today, yeah. Like I
Maybe
said,
we make an
I just
incremental game.
announced this. I just posted in like also like our Discord server. So yeah, 1241 right now is 120. That like there's a new game.
Don't forget the Hindi
And then
language
also, like,
options.
wish
Yeah, we
lists
gotta
are
do
still
the
at 0.
localization.
Are they still at 0? Yeah, they're still at 0. I have no idea how this game is gonna go. I'm gonna be honest. I think this definitely can be a $10,000 game. I do not think this game is going to overtake M198. I think the fantasy.
So this is what I was thinking. I was thinking making it's like a top-down. It uses Raylo, but uses, you know, that we have in the TDS project as reference. It uses like proper. So I'm just doing text to speech right now, so I can get this all out. But essentially, you have like a game. It's like top-down, and it's like an incremental game where there's like where's this? Where is? Where is the MS Paint thing here? You start as like a cube, right? It's like a square, right? And it follows the mouse. So you have your mouse here, and it'll kind of it's a cube. It's a 3-dimensional cube. That's my attempt at a 3-dimensional object there. And then basically, it kind of rotates towards the mouse, and then it kind of like moves over there, right? It moves in that direction, so it kind of like plops over, so it kind of rolls over, and it's slow. And then there are like coins or whatever, round coins, and it follows your mouse slowly, and you just want it. There's like a countdown timer, 60 seconds or whatever. And it follows. It basically plops down. You picks up the coins, right? Your coin counter goes up, right? As it picks up coins. The 60 seconds timer runs out. Up pops the screen, right? It then has upgrades. The upgrades are, I don't know. The upgrades would be like movement related, like faster rolling or whatever, but then also upgrades like a tires, so you don't have to roll, right? Or legs, like spider legs, right? And they cost different things, and we kind of have the node buster like upgrade paths, but it'd be disguised. And then the Node Buster upgrade paths, would be the base reference for the upgrades. And then you can also upgrade the movement speed, upgrade, and then have it do it autonomously where it's not using your mouse. Still the timer, more time per, that's like an upgrade, right? More time per round. But then there would also be weapons. All right, so like you'd start out as a little machine. That's just the square, collecting the bits and the bytes, right? And then you could also then upgrade a, like a laser turret. And then there would be competing squares. Right, there'd be competing squares that are also going for like the resources. And you also have like a health bar, right? Above your player and above them, and they'll attack you. And as the rounds get up, these ones get more and more violent, right? Get faster and violent, so it's hard to get, it's hard to get the coins because the coins are being collected by other people. Then those coins get upgraded for them. You're upgrading your character, and eventually, adding on like things like long range cannons, faster, like better autonomous strategy making, that sort of stuff. And you just build your machine up to get more and more things. Maybe make it where it can build a coin attractor or something. As they spawn in, they get sucked in, and you just kind of build it in, Yeah, and it would be like I guess we could go for like just basic graphics in the beginning, like we did with this. And then you're basically building a little machine to collect bits and bytes. And then build towers, that sort of stuff. And it would be like a machine thing. What do you think about that? On like a grid. And then this could be literally like a 2-week project. And you could literally follow the Node Buster. We could get the Node Buster upgrade tree path. And we just have this as the upgrade tree path. Yeah, this would be its own standalone game. And we go for Node Buster style graphics. No, Night Fort is not Fortnite is not dead. Night Fort is not dead. I'm saying in terms of another project. I feel like the Night Fort project is good. Like the game mode, we're trying this game mode, but this doesn't really have. We could just basically make a upgrade, like an incremental. It wouldn't be dead. It has to be released. It has to be like, whatever. While we're waiting for Steam, because we have the cube mode. The tower mode we can try. Let's try the tower mode. Let's just see what it looks like here. Yeah, so we're starting to get like the tower. We could work on get the tower defense good. Where's the how do I place it? Honestly, we could do the tower defense. It's a good idea for another project. Yeah, the tower defense placement of stuff needs to be better. How do I place it, though? Do I not have enough? How do I place it, dude? Let me place it, bro. Maybe we should just make the tower defense good. Maybe we should work on the tower defense instead of working on the memory game. For the tower defense mode, we should make sure the placement of the tower area is based on where the mouse is. And show a what's it called? Show a transparent version of what's being placed. Can you add a pay to play mechanics? Yeah, we need more defenses. What's being placed? Placed. Left mouse click to place items. Doesn't seem to be working. Yeah, like the boss thing needs to be reworked because that doesn't really make sense. Bro, my fort's about to get yacked. And the Fishman character? Soon. It's over. Yeah, because, like, I don't know, the cube mode works. Red lines symbolize punishment and pain. And the answer to this is the randomized walls that rise differently each wave. Bro, the answer to this is getting level ups here. We need lanes. No, but I feel like the tower defense it works. If I can get it, I'll have to work on that more tomorrow. But I like the incremental. The incremental is a pretty straightforward thing. The question is if that would be fun. Could randomize lanes, or you could make it where dead ops where there isn't really lanes, but certain places enemies come from. Dead ops in the tower defense game, though. Yeah, I think the problem is we're reinventing the wheel. Like, it needs to be good. Like, it needs to be fun. We have the cube mode is fun. What I'm worried about is that if we add another game mode, then people will be like, oh, I don't like this. I don't like that. They'll not get into either. Whereas if you have the one game mode, then it's like, okay, this is what the game is, you know? But I think the important thing is just get something out. Get the finished game out. Because the cube mode works. I guess we can give it, let's set a deadline for Sunday night. By Sunday night, I need to get the tower defense at least being fun and like having a feeling to it. If it doesn't, we'll cut that. And then by Tuesday, if that's good, then we'll devote more time to it. If it's not, then the memory game on Monday. Because like right now, as it stands, the night before or whatever, as it is, the game mode is fun. The cube mode. Tower defense could have arrows on the board. I'm just trying to think, could we combine the memory game with the tower defense? I think what I'm running into is I'm overcomplicating things that are straightforward. That's why I was thinking the other project that we haven't made at all. That's a very straight limited scope thing. Pretty straightforward. One thing good? Yeah, the cube mode is good. But I kind of want to make it excellent. Well, the cube mode is good. I feel like the cube mode is finished. The cube mode is finished. I feel like the tower defense is a whole nother issue. That would have to be like really polished. And I almost think it's better to have. It's almost better to have the Night Fort game out and then working on the next thing. That way some money's coming in from that, assuming you get some money for that. And having the next thing going too. Because the next thing is literally just like reskinning something and making it a little bit unique. But who knows if that's fun. I think that's almost worth going down a little path and seeing if there's fun there. You know what I mean? Gotta make the product. Yeah, because we can't go for perfection. We have to go. It can't be dream game with zero money. You know what I mean? I guess I gotta send Paul Schirmeager the current build we have and see if it works with the controller properly. Make a fun toy. Yeah, make a fun toy. And I feel like the other one will be like an easy toy to make. Because it's mapped out already with like, it just needs to be like converted to a different dimension in terms of like the upgrades of the movement. That follows proper. Well, let's watch some more of the video while we think about this here.
That Romney let us down. And so when Trump came on the scene in 2016, it was new, it was refreshing. He seemed like somebody that was really going to take on not just the Democrats, but also the media on our behalf. And what's more, you got to think about the mood of the moment in 16 as well and the message Trump was giving. Trump said in 16, It's just me and my son and my wife. We don't have any donors. We don't have any special interests.
More than $100 million put in of my money, meaning I'm not taking all of this big money from all of these different corporations like she's doing.
We're going to put America first, make the country great again. This is a very appealing message, and I talk all the time on my show about it, and realizing now that it was obviously a scam and now obviously unfulfilled completely, and you're right, Trump is non-ideological. The message was brilliant because it said, one, the system is broken. America's not great anymore, but it used to be. We can make it great again, but in order to do it, we need to actually bypass the system. Why is it that we never have victories? Why is it that things don't change? Because of money. He said, and that's why I'm different. I'm rich. I'm a billionaire. If I self-fund my campaign and don't take super PAC money, then I won't have to listen to the lobbyists and the special interests. I could fire the people I need to fire, do the things I need to do. That was like a very powerful message in 2016. And after 4 years, I was one of the people even back then that said, look, it never materialized. He did wind up taking super PAC money. He took APAC money for that matter. Sheldon Adelson money at that time in 16. Even in the first term, bombed Iran. In the first term, didn't build the wall. In the first term, didn't even reduce illegal immigration until
I just want to see if I can get the
controller.
controller.
I remember the timeline perfectly because I covered it every
I'm
day.
thinking out loud here. I don't think I'm gonna come to a conclusion here, but I'm thinking out loud. But yeah, I will probably send you the binary in private because it is like finished.
In May and June
I don't want
2019,
that just to be the full game that is like available to everybody.
Illegal immigration high in terms of month over month. But why did I go for him in 2020? At the height of the pandemic, we all thought on the right that if anyone other than Trump was president, you were going to get a vaccine mandate, which we really didn't want to be forced to take the vaccine. We thought the lockdown might never end. We thought that censorship would kick into overdrive. And so we said, really, it's unacceptable that anyone other than Trump would just be a disaster. And then obviously Biden came in, and I don't think it was as bad as we thought it would be, to tell you the truth, honestly. But by 2024, I mean, I was out. In 2024, because everything you're saying is totally true. And I was telling people on my side, I was saying he's not going to build the wall. And I know you're against that. He's not going to do the mass deportations, promising that. He's not going to start no new wars. I said in 24, he's going to take us to war in Iran. And the Ukraine war, I said, that's not going to end in one day. Too complicated. We're already in it. And so I didn't vote. I didn't vote in 2024, and I told my followers not to vote for Trump for that
Kind of
reason.
applies to game making business. Yeah, once again, I think what we have is quality. Like, I think we have... That's one thing I don't want to do. I don't want to add on stuff that is not good and kind of is distracting from what it is. Because, like, if you have something that's good, like one game mode that's good, you have another game mode that's not good, it kind of sullies the whole thing. So it's almost better to have one game mode that's good and leave it at that for now. I'm not sure. I'll have to think about it more.
And it was only until a year later, after all the exuberance died down and people saw the burying of the Epstein files, the war in Iran, people said, you know what? You were right. You were right about Trump. Even Alex Jones told me you were right.
And I think for $7, it's not a bad, like $6.70. It's not a bad what it is. I think it's well worth the money. I would like to have the other game mode. That's why I was trying the memory game mode. But even that, I think there is like a value in being like, no, that's not that good. It's not worth it. It's not fun. It's kind of just like annoying. To kind of be like, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think that's worth adding. You know what I mean?
About Trump, I was all in on him. So I mean, as far
like
as
restraint might be one. Another thing though, I don't want to get in the weeds with something else, and then both of them suck. But I do think the game mode we have is fun. I think you should add the randomized walls and let me play test it in the tower defense mode. Yeah, I'll work on the tower defense mode tomorrow. I'll I'll put like an 8-hour timer and just spend 8 hours working on it, trying to make it fun. If it doesn't work, it's just a day of work. That didn't work.
Vaporware is concerned and a scammer and
not to overcomplicate it. Yeah, well, that's the thing is, like if you have the one game mode that works, if you have one game mode that works really well, it's fun. I think it's fun. It's enjoyable. You can ruin it by having something else that sucks, right? Attached to it.
And fundamentally, you're 100% right.
I probably will stream tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see.
No ideological core. He's
It's
not an
I'll set an alarm. I'll try to wake up. Maybe we'll do an all-day stream or something.
Cool guy. Yeah, it is.
He's literally all about him.
And I agree, he's a cruel narcissist.
Yeah.
And you said I like the cruelty. I do not like the cruelty.
No, by the way, no. I didn't say you liked the cruelty. I said I'm listening to your thing, and you said one of the things that you liked about Levin was the cruelty. And not for the cruelty's sake, it didn't seem to me like this, is because it was raw.
Dazzling,
it was, yeah. And that's, so I'm not saying that.
No, but I agree. I think he is cruel, and even what he said on Easter. I mean, we're Catholic. On Easter Sunday, he says we're going to annihilate Iran, and then he made fun of Allah on Easter Sunday. So, you know, that kind of stuff, it just totally turned me off entirely.
Is there anything that you think Trump can do to like regain the support of the, I guess, Gen Z and millennial right?
No, it's over. People see what he's made of. And Hunter's right, he's a liar. He is a liar. He is a bullshit artist. And especially, you look at what he did with the Epstein files, with the war in Iran, what he did to Thomas Massie.
This guy named Thomas Massie, there's something wrong with him. They just vote no. They love voting no. They think it's good politically.
You realize that if you are America first, you have no place in this Republican Party, because he said it. He said our Republican Party, or rather, he said MAGA is Mark Levin, Laura Loomer, Randy Fine. He said, and who is not MAGA? Megyn Kelly, Tucker, Alex Jones, Candace. And I think most Republicans said, well, we're with those other people. We're not MAGA anymore. So
what do you think happens, Nick? I believe that we need radical change. And I'm not talking about violence or revolution or things like that. I'm talking about the only ways that you can have this kind of radical rethinking of the system. Like, there's so many questions. Like, what do you think about the Epstein files? What do you think about the accountability? Or do you think that he's broken the system to the degree that we now are basically in a dictatorship light?
No, I have a lot of confidence only because I think the Democrats are going to take the House in 26, which I support. I'm telling my people, vote Democrat. We want the Democrats in the House, because what they're going to do is they're going to use the oversight powers to bring all the corruption to light. Because I know Republicans will watch this, and when you say, you know, we didn't commit crime, they're going to be skeptical. However, for the sake of argument, let's say the income you made during Biden was ill-gotten. For the sake of example, it's just doesn't hold a candle. It doesn't even come close, doesn't even touch Jared Kushner, Howard Lutnick, Steve Witkoff, Don Jr., Trump himself. It's just a different sport. It's a different game entirely. And
He's a Democrat,
I want all that corruption to be revealed. And I think the Democrats are going to do it. I hope they get impeached. I don't think they'll be removed from office, but I think it'll basically drag this administration to a halt. And then 28, I think there's an opportunity for a clean reset with both sides, right and left.
Hey guys, quick thing. It's like
Agree or disagree? I
and
agree.
Big Hunter.
Once again, I don't really think. I think he's exhausting the opportunity, but once again, it's like both sides are obviously just together.
Ownership inside of Ground News, you can really trust exactly what you're reading. Look, I don't do much news contests for years. News is a good ground plan. The illest Hunter and Nick revolves around a Vance Trump. Sometimes you explain this like nightmare scenario that revolves around a Vance presidency.
Yes.
What about JD Vance being in power scares you so much?
If Trump doesn't have an ideological core, then Vance really doesn't, because Vance is a chameleon. That's not his real name, for openers. Never had a real job. These are all sinecures given to him by Peter Thiel. 6 years ago, he's a never Trumper.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
I think that he's leading people in a very dark direction, and that's ultimately what worries me the most.
Terrible candidate. Idiot if you voted for him. Might be America's Hitler.
I was wrong about Donald Trump. I didn't think he was going to be a good president, Brett. He was a great president.
Now he's a national conservative, national populist, and so we don't even really know who he is. I mean, to me, this is basically a Manchurian candidate. This is a shell. And who is the power behind him? It's the oligarchs. It's the little tech oligarchs in bed with the CIA, you know, especially at this fever pitch with AI. I think that's really dangerous. So to me, him being president is just a worse scenario in my mind.
For the uninformed viewer, what is the Palantir-JD Vance connection?
Well, Palantir was founded by Peter Thiel, and Peter Thiel's very close with David Sachs. JD Vance was given his first job in Silicon Valley by Thiel. Thiel hooked him up with it. You know, the CEO of that company said it was a personal favor to Thiel that I hired him. And then Thiel got him all his jobs at these various venture capital firms, including his own, and then funding JD Vance's venture capital firm. Peter Thiel gave $15 million to Vance when he ran for Senate in Ohio in 2022. Peter Thiel secured President Trump's endorsement for him in 2022, which basically got him the nomination and the seat. So, I mean, as far as anybody's concerned, Vance owes his entire political career to Peter Thiel, who derives his fortune from Palantir.
And now he's a Catholic like you and me.
Well, he's a convert, so, you know.
Beware the convert.
Little
So do you
oligarchs
think
more
that,
big,
that
based on the
Trump's
big ones. Yeah.
unfulfillment of his campaign promises was a
We're
result
just
of
speed
him?
running. Like once again, I think we're speed running the moment. Not speed running, but we're traveling down the path of like young people realizing there is no solution.
Being like compromised by somebody connected to that structure, or do you think he always just never cared?
I don't know that he never cared. I just think that, you know, I'm an idealist. So I think about the ideas and the concepts. Trump is a businessman. And so I think with him, everything's transactional. And I said this in 2024. Trump knew the voters would swallow anything. The voters would not walk away from the table because they were enamored with him.
I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
So he knew he could break every promise with them in order to fulfill promises for the donor class, which is little tech, the Israel lobby, and Wall Street. The bankers, Tim Mellon, the big asset managers. So I think with him, everything's business, everything's a transaction. And that's why you can't trust him. You have to do business. And in 24, I said we should all collectively say we're not going to vote unless he makes certain commitments. And not enough people did that. But I mean, that's fundamentally his flaw.
Your critique of this like elite power structure sounds like vaguely anti-capitalist.
It's not anti-capitalist. You
Boom.
know, capitalism says large amounts of capital will be held in private hands, which I believe in. I am a capitalist. But I think what is happening is that it's the way that money is used in government. There needs to be a distinct and separate national power that subordinates the money power to it. The problem is the billionaires buy all the elections, buy all the media, control public perception, and so really we're all subsidiary then to the market. So I support capitalism, but it just has to be underneath the nation, underneath the state.
It seems like you have a pretty optimistic perspective on the year 2028.
Well, he's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president in 28.
Kind of keep coming back to this like clean election year. Do you think that's going to be like a renaissance year for outsider candidates and outside media channels like this one?
It can be. I think it certainly can be because I think there's frustration on the right and on the left. You know, you see even in the primaries on the Democrat side, it's all DSA progressive types that are winning. You ironically have the same frustration on the left with their establishment as we have on the right. And so I think, you know, in 2028, it's going to be a year where there'll be a competitive Republican primary and Democratic primary, and hopefully the people make their voice heard and we get some new options, you know, maybe that reflect the will of the people more.
Yeah. And so, what do you think about somebody like Mamdani?
Personally, I don't like him. I don't like some of the things that he said, like, for example, on 4th of July, when he takes the opportunity to sit there with, let's be honest, not a single white person in the room and says, you know, the founding fathers.
Peter Thiel is also a puppet. Sure, everyone's a puppet of capital. We're just straight up Marxist pagans now, dude.
Would look down on us, the working people with their dirt-streaked hands against the billionaires. I think it's a little too divisive. I like his energy. I like that he's young. It's ironic. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
That's rich, buddy. But no, look,
but it seems pointed at me.
I know, but the thing.
He was dissing you in that video?
Yeah, a
like
little bit.
Staring down the camera, like, just for you, Nick, you son of a bitch.
People like me.
Yeah.
But what I see is somebody is using government for exactly the purpose that you just said, is to break the oligopoly, to target the anger towards a tiny percentage of the population that has controlled the levers of government from the White House down to the mayor's office in New York City or Peoria, Illinois, to that matter, and even more so as you go further down that chain. And so I look at somebody like Mamdani, and regardless of his delivery, which may be off-putting, particularly from somebody coming from your side, is that he's delivering, man. You know what? I mean, he's really delivering. You know, like I saw somebody going after Mamdani for some of this stuff, and particularly about rent control. You know, and I was like, well, how do you think the middle class was built after World War II and the GI Bill and rent-controlled buildings that created those communities that we were talking about an hour ago?
The GI Bill provides returning soldiers and veterans a range of benefits,
including mortgages to purchase homes, loans to go to school. And this really was instrumental in creating the new American middle class.
Created the availability for somebody that was 26 years old that had a job with the MTA to be able to live and work in the city and put the kid into school with the idea that they would be safe walking there and go to a park that, you know, where the water fountains worked. That's what I see him trying to do. I mean, by the way, it's just so tired and, you know, he's a communist, like it's about the communists. Like, who even says that anymore? Nobody, like, you know what? It was 1981 and, you know, we're watching Rocky V and worried about the communists. You know what I mean? I just don't, I don't get it.
Boom.
Rocky IV? My whole Philly legitimacy was just blown right there. Yeah. But it's just kind of, and so I look at somebody like Mamdani, I think, well, he's just talking about good government. Like, what do you think about healthcare? Don't you think that there should be a single-payer system? Don't you think that there should be some guarantee as a right? Because I don't know how you make it in this country and aspire to a middle-class life and be able to afford a, you know, catastrophic event as it relates to your health. I mean, it's over. You're done.
Yeah. I don't support single payer, but I do believe that everybody should be entitled to some minimum level of coverage, catastrophic insurance. So, in principle, I agree.
Which is Medicare for all to a certain degree, right? I mean, because that's all the Medicare does right now. But why is that radical?
See, I don't think that's necessarily radical, but
to them, it's because we've been convinced that it's a radical
them.
Yeah.
Those others.
Yeah, no, them. I mean the insurance companies.
Sure.
And their lobbyists who control 55% of Congress, regardless of who's in power.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I don't think that's necessarily the most radical. I think, though, he is with the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. He backs all these DSA candidates. And let's be honest, a lot of them are radical. Like, I saw one of these candidates that just won in New York a couple weeks ago, this Chevalier candidate. There's a picture.
She hates my dad.
Yeah, I know.
She said about my dad.
She had awful things about him.
Yeah.
She says, oh, I didn't have a napkin to wipe my hands, so I used the American flag.
Yeah. Yeah, by the way, I think it's crazy, but like the same way that, you know, I thought a lot of the stuff that some people that got elected in 2016, 2020, even during the Tea Party, you know, kind of movement was, you know, egregious. Again, egregious.
If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut that whole thing down.
So what do we do, Nick?
I think a better question is...
for real, what do we do? Can you at least come a little bit to this way?
If you can come a little this way.
I can. Here's where I can come.
With your hands.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Got physical. This got physical.
Oh, about that.
Yeah. No, I mean, really.
I do. And listen, here's what I'll say. Now that I'm older, I do think that's not the best approach. So I agree with you on that. And I see it as I get older, you know, because let's be honest, saying those things when I'm a younger guy, when I'm, you know, 18, 20, it's like, you got to think that's just the age.
Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
And a lot of young people think that's funny and everything like that. I think that it also goes with the medium as well. Live streaming, social media, that's just what it rewards. So yeah, I think that people should try to move past some of that.
I'll try. But if you try.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
For real. And as it relates to
for real, dude.
When you talk about
totally
Israel,
for real,
the
bro.
Netanyahu Likud government, what's happening now, what's happened for the past 20 years in terms of whether the funding to Israel, whether you think it is. It's really important that you make a distinction between that and Jews. Because here's the thing, okay? Zoran Mamdani has a higher favorability rating in the United States among Jews than Bibi Netanyahu does. I think 65% of American Jews disagree with the approach that the Israeli government has right now. They don't disagree with you, but they completely turn on when they hear the conflation of Jews, Zionism, Israel, and think automatically anti-Semitism, whether it's fair or not, okay? But you have to understand it. And you have to understand it from a cultural perspective in which the recent history is only one data point in 2,000 years of history as it relates to what it means to be a Jew, of which there is what, 1%, 0.5% of the entire world's population? Because I don't know what it adds to your argument, or what it adds to your argument about Miriam Adelson being able to give $300 million to Donald Trump and commit to giving another $300 million to get her way, and we end up in a war with Iran.
Yeah, well, and I think that's a valid point. I do think, though, that the issue's broader than just Netanyahu.
Oh, maybe, by the way, obviously Netanyahu has a base within Israel, within the Jewish community here in the United States, with Jared Kushner. You know what I mean? Jared Kushner, who is unelected, not a member of our government, is having has more control over the direction of the everyday lives of American people right now than anybody that I know of. And meanwhile, all he's doing is building a $6 billion private equity fund with the people he is negotiating for. And I always say, look who's paying him, and wondering whose interest that he is advancing. He's getting paid by the Saudis, and get paid by the Emiratis, and get paid by the Qataris. He's getting paid.
Trying to make it where you start kissing and go onto the bed. Nice.
Down the
That's
list.
a good AI
And
video.
for some reason, he is in control, along with Steve Witkoff, who is also not elected by anybody, of deciding whether or not the Straits of Hormuz are going to open up, and whether or not our gas prices are going to go down. It may not matter to the three of us necessarily, you know, an extra dollar, 60 cents or 85 cents. But you know what? To 85% of the people that live in America, it means it's the difference between whether or not they're going to be able to pay rent, you know, whether or not you're going to be able to actually put the gas in your car in Montana to drive to your job on the, you know, on the ranch.
Well, and here's what I'll say to you, and this is something kind of why I want to do this interview, is emphasize the message that as far as Jews are concerned in general, I think that it's the same standard that applies to everybody, which is as long as you're patriotic, as long as you believe Americans should be put first by their government, I have no problem at all. And I think that everybody in the country should be treated with dignity and respect and have their civil rights. It's just this acute problem of these people, like you mentioned, like Larry Ellison and Miriam Adelson and Jared Kushner, they're putting some other country before the interest of our own. And that, in principle, is what I have a problem with.
There is going to be some people who watch this and feel like, all right, no take backsies. And they might feel like you're just kind of trying to moderate, and that now that you've achieved your goal and got a lot of support, you're kind of moderating because your main aim has already been achieved, which is to sort of have a generational run and pop off. So now you're trying to kind of make your way more into the mainstream discourse, but that you'll just go back again into the same sort of reactionary rhetoric once you're back in a #1 spot.
Well, I don't even think I'm moderating. And I even told our mutual friend, it's not even a moderation. It's not even an apology. It's clarifying, because, you know, all along I've been saying this message. It's just that the way that I'm saying it changes and evolves. And I also think how people respond to it changes as well. Because let's be honest, 10 years ago, there was a very different kind of conversation about Israel. You could not mention it in a negative or critical way without being utterly annihilated in politics. We all know that ever since October 7th, that's not the case anymore. So I think that there's sort of something reciprocal happening, which is that people are receiving me differently. And as someone that's growing older and more mature, I'm even representing myself differently. So I wouldn't even call it moderating, just clarifying. People are more receptive, and I'm maybe better able to articulate it.
And you think that's because you've kind of gotten older and been able to have like a longer career in media to reflect on your different changes in your perhaps brain chemistry and lifestyle?
That's a huge thing. I mean, I know it's 27. I have a very different mentality than I did when I was 20.
What's the main difference, you think?
Just more even keeled. And I think you know too, it's like when you're 20, you're just like a maniac. And then you hit 25 and you're like, all right, you know.
I was a maniac when I was 49. My brain chemistry has definitely changed in the last 7 years too. You know, and I do believe that people can grow and they can change. And I'm not asking you to, and I'm not asking you to say things, but there are certain things that I just hope that you can hear without feeling attacked. That some of the things that you said, whether it's edgelording otherwise, are really hurtful, and then people completely turn off to the idea of being able to listen to you about anything, and then you get dug in more, and you're like, go fuck yourself, like, you know, you can't take a joke kind of thing. And that's not what it is. It's not just wokeism. It's not. It's people being really, really hurt by it. And I accept your apology for all of the mean things you said about me.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, I'm on my apology tour, is that the one thing you did say, you said I was a degenerate crackhead.
Me?
And I have the problem with that, not you.
Me?
Yeah. And
I also said you were cool, though.
yeah, no, by the way, you said a degenerate crackhead, and you know what? I'm not even mad about that, because I was a degenerate crackhead. I spent more time on my hands and knees smoking anything that even remotely resembled crack cocaine. It's true.
And now you're sober.
Yeah.
And I find it interesting, you also said that you've never drank before.
Right. Yeah, I've never had a drink, never done drugs.
That's because you grew up, with me. You're like, don't be that guy.
I grew up with you too, and I was doing.
Yeah. You're not as smart as he is. My brother never drank. My dad too. And
I was gonna ask you, Nick, what kind of prompted your choice to just like be sober for life and never drink?
Well, a big part of it is I had a lot of addiction in my family. My grandfather was an alcoholic, committed suicide. Uncle died from an overdose from crack
anything
cocaine.
on his hands and knees.
My mom, two of her uncles, heroin addicts for their entire lives. And it just devastated my family, devastated both of my parents. And so I know I have that addictive personality and probably have the genetics for it. And not only that, but I like being rational. I like having my sober mind. I think that's actually a sacred thing. To have unimpaired reason. So the thought of losing control and even being tempted to get into, worse things, I just thought it's just not worth the risk. So it's just never for me.
well, how much, by the way, sorry, do we have time? Yeah. Is it, how much do you think COVID warped not just your generation, but everybody? Because I have this theory that there was this thing that broke for us with COVID. And that nobody's really come to terms with how traumatic that was for everyone.
And especially for the younger generations. I think severely less for the older generations, but for the younger people, missing the graduations, missing critical years in school, that's when the socialization happens. That's when you learn to get along. And so you think about how this generation is going to grow up having 2 to 3 lost years, no sports, no school, no extracurriculars, vacations. It's devastating. And we already had a problem with that isolation, social dislocation, loneliness. I can't even imagine. So it's going to be devastating, I think. But that's a lockdown.
So maybe if you're watching this video after this, put your phone or computer away, go outside, make a friend, just do anything but scroll to the next video.
Guys?
Back in the day during Nickelodeon, they had Go Outside Day.
Oh yeah.
I feel like we need like one day a week where it's mandated in a tech oligarch sense that no one can go on their phone or use the computer.
Man, I would love that. I mean, that's one thing. Is if the one thing we could all agree on. The way I say it now is you're all carrying around a bag of heroin in your pocket. Everybody is, and it's probably even more dangerous in some ways.
Would either of you guys ever run for office?
Are you asking me for real?
Yeah.
No. I think that politics, the way that my dad engaged in it, and that I'm obviously incredibly biased, is an incredibly noble thing. But that's not where my head is in terms of what I want to do. I want to reach. My whole thing is that forget all of this. I want to reach 1 million people in addiction. I think one of the biggest things about addiction, and one of the reasons why it continues to be this, epidemic, is that we don't talk about it. Is that you don't even talk about it around your dinner table. And what you realize, if you're coming from my particular unique situation, is that everybody comes to me and they tell me their story. And sharing that is like, breaks that cycle of shame. And so I want to reach 1 million people in addiction.
How about you, Nick? Would you ever run for office?
I don't think so, no. Just because I don't think you can fully be authentic when you're running for office because
Bro's going to
it's
rule an army of crackheads.
My role, they say, according to the Overton
the president of the crackheads.
Ideas that are inside the Overton
if you want to change
are ideas that are politically
these
safe.
cuts are horrible.
The public is ready to
it's like
accept
AI
them.
cuts.
They say that if you want to change people's opinions and what they consider acceptable, you kind of have to be the first to the punch and maybe considered a bad person or evil or whatever in order to promote your view. And so that just doesn't lend itself to that kind of politics. So I think to protect my own integrity and authenticity of the message, I have to not run for office.
See what we just did? We just made probably the entire audience happy. One half is glad I'm not running. The other half is really glad he's not running.
What? If not you guys, then, is there any candidate or prospective candidate that you feel like could run in 2028 that would, have a fair shot that y'all support?
Nobody in particular for me. I haven't really been too impressed with who's come out of the Republican Party So I'm hoping they'll just be somebody we haven't heard of, somebody maybe that hasn't been in office before.
He's voting for Gavin Newsom in 20.
That's right. Yeah. Well, if it's Newsom and Vance, I'd certainly think about it.
Yeah.
How about you? Anybody that creates a twinkle in your eye?
No, I think that there are a lot of people. I mean, I know that you think that you're going to laugh at me, but I personally like Gavin Newsom a lot. I think that he's authentic in those beliefs, whether you agree with them or not. Thomas Massey's principled stand as it relates to the Epstein files was incredibly courageous.
Do not let the Senate muck this bill up. I am sorry if one of your billionaire donors is going to get embarrassed because he went to rape
yeah, dude.
filing.
And that's why he's not going to be a congressman anymore. But that's why, he could potentially make a really strong national candidate.
And you guys think America will exist in a post-Epstein capture freeway?
Will America exist?
Yeah, will America survive the current power structure's stranglehold on the media, the political system, and all public affairs?
I don't know. I think AI is going to really be transformative. It's interesting. Nobody seems to be talking about that.
Transformative in what sense? Like for bad?
Concentration of power. That's the single biggest. And you know what? I'm actually on the liberal side on this with Anthropic over let's say, because there's this battle between these effective altruists, effective accelerationists, and I really am nervous about what's going to happen, especially in the next 4 years, because they're racing towards this artificial general intelligence, artificial super intelligence, and that, without a doubt,
America
is going to be the
become
single
whatever they want
biggest
it to be.
influence on the country, and so I'm really worried about
Yeah, that's like the thing that is like frustrating, because it is kind of an answer that's like nobody likes. Is it's like the same way philosophy is like only philosophy in the sense that it doesn't solve what it's looking for. Because if it solves it, then like you have nothing else to talk about. Because like philosophy in its sense is almost like its own bureaucracy where it needs to exist, right? And for it to exist, it needs to not solve or figure everything out, right? It needs to not really understand everything, because if it understands everything, then there's no point in philosophy. So like, it's one of those weird. It's almost like a paradox. But it's kind of like the answer to what's going on is that it's just technology, and who runs it does matter. But at the end of the day, it's like, I think you can always say like technology can always be used in an aggressive manner better than it can be used in a defensive manner, right? So for example, computer viruses. Like you can use technology to prevent computer viruses, right? You can like create a defense from computer virus. But there's always going to be some computer viruses that get through. So like on the net whole, technology is like an aggressive sense, right? It's not like you can use technology to stop the aggressiveness of a technology, right? It just by nature of what it is, there's going to be some viruses. So on the net whole, no viruses at all, right? The only way you're not going to get viruses is if isn't computer technology to make viruses. So you have on one hand you have people making the viruses, on the other hand you have people making the antivirus, right? And just say there's 10,000 viruses and there's 10,000 antiviruses or whatever, or 10,000 attacks. If one gets through, on the whole, the creation of technology means it's like pro-virus, if that makes sense. It's kind of not a perfect analogy, but it's close enough. Where same thing with like drones, right? You can use drones to attack, kill people. You can also use drones to defend, right? To stop other drones from coming in. But they're not always going to be able to stop all the drones. So on the whole, the advancement of drones is a attack capacity going stronger than the defensive capacity. Like on the whole, every technological advance displaces something and aggresses upon something in a way that the same technology used to defend from it isn't going to perfectly defend from it. So there's always going to be some slight margin that's always in an aggressive sense. So it's the same thing with AI, where it's like AI is going to make certain things better, and there's certain things are going to get better, but on the whole, it's going to be used to displace a lot of jobs, a lot of people. It's going to displace thinking and like the value of being reasonable, because at the end of the day, it's going to take a lot of those jobs, right? So it's going to necessarily make it so, yeah, there'll be new jobs created, but it'll be like, just say there's 1,000 jobs total, or there's 100 jobs total, and it creates 20 more jobs, but it takes half of them. So it creates 20 more jobs, but it takes 60 jobs. So really, you've lost 40 jobs, right? Because it's only created 20, but it's taken 60. So you've lost 40 jobs. And it's the same thing with like railroads, books, computers, phones, the internet. All the stuff impacts the environment and impacts the ecosystem of like the physical world, but also the mental ecosystem, but the physical world to a degree where that is what is shaping history. Like that is what is, and like who is in control of those is really, it's just about literally the entire history of like countries and civilizations, empires. They kind of rise and fall based on technological advancements that either make certain types of things more powerful or certain types of things less powerful in relation to the technology. And as technology advances, and that's kind of why you have like why is Detroit so bad? It's because there was a ton of factories and manufacturing and stuff for cars and that sort of thing. So they shipped in a bunch of workers, like the underclass, right? A lot of them were black, but they shipped in a lot of workers. That was fine while it was happening. But then once those factories move somewhere else and they get more, they get shipped overseas, or the process by which you don't need as many people or that sort of thing. Those people are still there. The time scale, like people's lives and their families and their education, that stuff is still there. But the technology has now moved its center of power to a different form, to a different location, and as a result, because that area no longer has like the center of power, the center of like industry and like resources, you have this dearth of like opportunity, but you have dearth is like less, right? Is it dearth or birth? Whatever. You have like an excess of human capital, but you have a lack of places for that human capital to expend itself and to reward itself through technology. So as the technology moves, and it's the same thing, that's kind of what determines everything. Like when in like World War II, when you had like Polish people with like horses and you have like tanks, German tanks, it's like that is what determines who wins and who loses, is who has the technology and who can use it better. Like who has the tanks? It's obviously the people who the tanks are going to win, or the people with horses, right? Um, and it's kind of the same thing with like everything, with like the AI. At the end of the day, who is in control of that, who's running that, that's who's going to have the power over making things. Because like I was saying, with like making software, which is like the biggest industry, technology is like the biggest industry, that is going to be, on one hand you have like vibe coding of like, and I'm not saying vibe coding in the sense of just do this, but you have what we're doing where it's like step by step. It's still like engineering, but it's you're not typing in like variable names and references and functions and stuff. You're just typing in like stuff and you're having it do it. There's gonna be people doing that, but then also you're gonna have who's going to be able to afford to run, who's going to be able to afford to spend $500,000 running a model that is going to attack the code base and try to find all the vulnerabilities that they're of the thing they're making, and then fix the vulnerabilities before it even gets released, because now the offensive model has found the bugs. Then you have the other model, or the same model, fix the bugs. And so that's going to be like who has the capital to do that. It's not really going to be, it's the same way somebody who is a genius and is homeless, or like not like doesn't really have opportunities or like connections, is not really going to be able to compete with somebody who might also be smart, or the same exact level of intelligence, but has like $10 million and has the connections to a manufacturing plant, or like family in the government, so they can do stuff. And I really, it's like, yeah, it's like technology is kind of the answer to what the problem is. And the problem is that technology moves capital, and it moves the it's or not it's increasingly moving resources and flows of resources at a speed which is like killing. Like for example, with like on like a jet, right? There's like, you can, like, a human can go into like 9G pressure, right, or whatever it's called, not centrifugal force, whatever it's called. 9Gs of pressure on the human for a very short amount of time before they die, in like a jet. So like jets have to be engineered to not go over like the 9Gs of force, and if it goes over, they'll die, right? And so technology without people inside of it can go faster than that. And like I think what's happened is like technology has hit this period of like moving things too fast for like the human time scale of like um family planning and community building and that sort of stuff and all the things that make humans productive, which is like friendships and having a stable future and having like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get up tomorrow and scheduling things. um and I think like if you think about what civilization is versus like less developed, like think of the people in Australia, the aboriginals, right? Or the aborigines. Like what made civilization grow out of people planning is that like it was planned in a human time frame of like, all right, next year we can plan ahead to that, we can plan ahead to that, we can plan for 5 years from now, we can plan for 10 years from now, we can plan a month from now, we can plan 6 months from now. And from that we can then, you know, plant crops or do stuff like that. And then the people who are kind of just kind of living in the moment, they're not going to build civilization because they're whatever. And so I think what's happening is that technology is outpacing the civilizational like aspects of people, and it's not just like white people, it's like Asians too, um, and that sort of thing. Where it's like we can plan for year, we can plan for the seasons, we can plan for you know, winter and summer, and like a crop takes this many weeks to, you know, do this, and you need to like feed the soil with this at this many weeks in. I think the problem is that like with money being divorced from physicality and from, you know, goods and services being very abstracted, they don't exist in a human time frame. They don't exist in a like a human lifespan, like time scale. And as a result, the things that make the most sense and how to use technology, like it's like everyone's like it's like getting more than 9 Gs of pressure in terms of like planning. You can't really plan. Like how can you plan? How can we plan for the future, you know, 10 years from now? Right? How can you can't really, if you're setting up like a society right now with like the advancements in artificial intelligence, with the advancements that will be in robotics and that sort of stuff, you can't really even say like what is, if I wanted to build a sustainable future for 100 people, what, how would you even do that? Because it's like, are you're not, you might need the 100 people to build the factories, and you need the 100 people to build, you know, the systems and connect the machines and all that stuff. Once those machines are connected though, you don't really need the 100 people. And I think that's, I think they're, the way resources are extracted and moved around is like too strong and too powerful in a way that's kind of like, it is like being in like the jet, and the jet's going way past 9 Gs. um and so it's kind of yeah, it's a question of who can use it better. And the thing is, I don't think anybody can use it. I think it's one of those things where it's like it's just like too powerful. It's like too, you can't, once again, and the thing is you can't take it away, because whoever has it is way more powerful. Like whoever has the money and the connections is way more powerful than the people who don't. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, you should, you know, guns are bad. You shouldn't have guns. And it's like, yeah, guns can be bad. They can be used in a bad way. But if you take away the guns from everybody, somebody's gonna get the gun, and all of a sudden now they're in charge of everybody because they have a gun. And so you really can't limit it in that way. It doesn't let itself be limited. Technology is one of those things. Kind of, it's like a weed where it kind of pushes through. And yeah, everyone can agree, hey, let's not use this. Let's not use, you know, debt. Let's not use, because technology can also be like a money is a technology, right? Like all these games of like, oh yeah, we'll borrow from here and then we'll have interest rates on it. Like we messed with like time frames and like periods of like growth in a way that kind of, the people who mess with it, they get a temporary boost, and then that allows them to leverage that into like a nice life, and then that comes at the expense of everybody else. And I don't think that's something that can be like avoided or something that can be prevented, because anybody who's using like the hack, it's the same thing with like steroids in sports. It's like technically steroids in sports are illegal, right? But everyone uses them. They do use steroids, and because if you don't, you're not gonna be able to compete. You're not gonna be able to, you know, compete at a level. And so basically, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. You know, that sort of thing. And I think it's the same thing with the economy. It's the same thing with business. And I think the, like the aftershock of it is like too. It always impacts people who are not the ones doing it. Like if I was doing like shale or whatever, shale drilling or whatever it's called, or fracking, and I'm fracking and I'm making a ton of money doing it, I make, you know, $100 million, and the town that I'm doing it in, they get their water supply, like their water tables get destroyed and that sort of stuff. And there's like a bunch of pollution and that sort of thing. It doesn't really matter to me because I can just go somewhere else, right? I'm not, the money travels with me. The money doesn't really, the money spends, right? Whether it's in America, whether it's in China, whether it's wherever. And I think that's kind of the problem. It's like we figured out a way to extract value. It's the same thing. I guess another way would be like people who make like the brain rot shorts, where it's like they make a ton of money making brain rot shorts, or streamers or whatever, and make a ton of money, and it's like you've extracted the value, you've kind of like parasite. You're like a parasite. You've extracted value from something, but the host is like dying. And in order to continue your way of life and continue your like standard of living, you have to essentially continue extracting value. Eventually, you run out of value to extract. Like the ecosystem kind of collapses. It's kind of the same. You see the same thing with like the topsoil across the country. Like it's getting worse and worse. Like that's going to collapse. That is just going to get worse. And the problem is it's too, like all these people can go to New Zealand. Like all these people can just fly to New Zealand. If things get too bad, they literally just go to New Zealand or anywhere else, Indonesia, or not Indonesia, Singapore, something like that. You know what I mean? And so I don't think it's really a solvable thing. I think that's kind of the problem, which is that I don't think there is it's just like a runaway equation.
And what about that concerns you? Is it surveillance?
It's the concentration of power in the hands of whoever controls it. Whichever firm is the one to develop ASI, that could confer dictatorial-like powers upon the CEO of that.
Yeah, and like once again, this is actually true. Like that's one of the things. It's like the AI stuff is like, how do you plan a year in advance, 2 years in advance, 3 years in advance? There are things you can do, but you have to like, it's pretty like pretty bleak.
That company. So whether that's Sam Altman or it's Dario, you know, if the artificial intelligence is aligned with its creator, that person will become the most powerful person in the history of mankind on
It's
on
almost
that
an
day.
inherent truth, in my opinion, what he just said, is that the greatest leap in human evolution is going to happen within our lifetimes. AGI,
I think that's
let
true.
alone, you know, superintelligence, is everything that we think about the way in which we exist in the world completely changes. And I don't think that that's in any way hyperbole. And if you listen to the people that are developing these technologies right now, they are the most alarmist.
I think AI will probably, like most likely, sort of lead to the end of the world.
If you want to know what
How can you control a super intelligence? Yeah, I don't. That's the thing. I don't think it'll ever get to super intelligence because it's like there's no reason to. There's zero reason to. There's zero like why would you give it the authority to usurp you ever?
life's like when you're not the apex intelligence?
What a
Ask
terrible time to
chicken.
be alive. No, I think it's a good time in the sense that I do think it. I agree. I think it's like a crazy event.
Now, by the way, I think that there's an enormous possibility for incredibly beneficial things to society, like being able to cure cancer. I just think of this one thing. Everything that AI is built on is ours, belongs to you, and you, and you.
Like I think the biggest thing that could be like a problem is like if something does kind of go artificial intelligence mode and like causes problems across technology. I think that could be like a thing. Like it just destroys the internet or like clogs up a ton of stuff, destroys a bunch of data somehow. Like there's some weird like it wouldn't be artificial intelligence, but it's some like prompt, and it finds some problem in like how all security is and how like whatever is calculated, and it kind of just runs wild before anybody can stop it, and it literally just like destroys the internet. And I could see that. Or like another thing that could happen too is money could get devalued. I think that's another thing that is kind of lurking that people don't really seem to know or seem to be worried about, that I think is like a real thing, is I think money in of itself, the way it's valued, is wrong now, because now we've created some sort of aspect of something that can rearrange matter and rearrange data in a way that's like automated. which then, money is kind of like focus. Money in its like ideal form is like a metric of like expended energy and focus and time, and you're paying you. So basically, it's like it's a way to abstract that. And I think because of this, because of because of AI and because of the way it's going to end up, and it kind of is already, it just hasn't been really like set up properly yet. The value of money, because it's based on like human ingenuity and human focus and time spent, since everything is going to be that whole dimension, or that whole like measurement is like being exponentially devalued. Like that whole follow through and all that stuff that you're paying for, that's being devalued, and that is being in one specific domain, and it's not being devalued right now in like the physical domain. It's being devalued in the mental domain. Um, that is like that throws off retroactively throws off the entire value of things built, like the entire like system, like technology is so valuable, or like the internet is so valuable, and software is so valuable, and systems built with software are so valuable and so precise and so like convoluted or whatever. But if all of a sudden that it would be like if all of a sudden anyone can make a house, right? Like right now, if I could push a button and like I'd have land and a house, like it would cost $10 to make. It would cost $10 in electricity, a few days and time, and all of a sudden there's a perfect house. All of a sudden, every single house built prior is retroactively devalued, because now those things aren't valuable, because now those things can be recreated. Um, and so the valuing of those things gets like weirdly crunched, and then economies that are based on house value, on where you want to move, so you work at this, that's devalued. Which then, so now you have a bunch of people whose entire livelihoods are based on that. But picture it's all knowledge work, it's all like white collar work, it's all that stuff is like, I don't know. I think there's like a weird crunch of like how money is seen, that like it's flattened. Like money becomes valueless. Not in like some like, oh, now everybody has infinite money. It just in the terms of like, well, now it's like, well, what is the need for money? You know what I mean? Certain things are going to become way more valued. Certain things are going to be way less valued. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you'd even. It's one of those things. It's such like a shock to the system in terms of like how everything flows. It's like a tsunami, and it's like, well, are we worried? Like, I don't know. It's one of those. It's such a weird ball of like yarn. Like, where does it start? Where does it end? And it's all tangled. And I don't think it can be like modeled properly.
All the way back through the human civilization. That's what they're stealing from us, and they're putting it into the hands of literally a handful of people. All of that human knowledge, and the value that comes from it. And I think that that's ours. So any AI that is developed, particularly that goes to HEE, should be it should be communal. It should be shared in the not just the beneficial offshoots of it, but the actual money of it should be shared.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's like nuclear bombs, but it's also a commodity at the same time. The weapons potential, the economic potential, I think that's going to be the biggest thing. And I hope on some level that liberals win that argument, because what Trump is doing with the Pentagon, Anthropic, and OpenAI, the way they're handling it is so reckless and sloppy and just honestly unbelievable. So we need some adults in the room on that one.
Well, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate you guys for coming. You guys have any final questions you want to ask to each other, or maybe a message you want to give to the American people?
I still believe in America, and I truly believe in these conversations. And I think everyone that's watching would think that I would not want to sit down with Nick. And this, I guess, what I'm getting at with you is that I hope you see the humanity in me, and so when the way that you talk in the future takes that into consideration. And what I'll do is I'll see the humanity in you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was a great conversation, and I think that we have to come together on the things that we agree on, which is, for example, that we love the country, we both believe in America, we both want the country to succeed, and I like what you said, that we see the fundamental humanity in each other. And I think that especially especially in the events of the last year, the killing of Charlie Kirk, you realize that's actually not something that people on both sides share. I think there's people on the right and the left that don't see the humanity in the other side. And so maybe that's the new consensus, or that's where we can come together, is on the basis that, we disagree on fundamental issues, and even sometimes it gets heated and we yell at each other, but that we do ultimately want the best for each other. We love each other. We want the country to succeed. And I think that's a starting point for any solution and any conversation.
All right, American brothers. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. Thanks, buddy.
There we
Good job,
go.
guys. After interviewing Hunter and Nick about a variety of
That was a good interview. Once again, it's like kind of crazy to have to like talk to a crackhead, but I thought that was a good. I thought that was a good discussion. I thought it was good. What did you guys think? Agree? Disagree? Hunter seems cool. Hunter's father did the lockdowns. They should have called him out. Yeah, it wasn't very violent. There was no fighting. Talked about the laptop from hell. Yeah. No, I thought it was a good. It's a good one.